All right, so I guess we are on air live. Hey everyone. I
You
was
guess.
thinking. Yes, I do guess. This is what Google's telling me. I was thinking of doing a weird intro, but I'm going to do the regular one because I think everyone's going to get a kick out of it. So hey everyone, Joe here with another episode of the Upper Memory Block podcast. I believe this is episode. Well, this will be up on the feed as episode 78, if I'm not mistaken. And we're not here to talk about it. At least we're not here to talk about one game from the DOS and pre-Windows XP gaming era. We're hopefully going to talk about a whole whack of them, and maybe not even from the era. We may go out sideways. So this is our third hangout. I talk with my hands when I'm on video. You guys see. This is how I actually do the show. I'm sitting here by myself, no one around, and I'm gesturing, doing crazy stuff. So
Waving your hands around like you're directing a plane.
exactly. I am of Italian descent, so I do talk with my hands. But yeah, so this time for the third hangout, we are going to talk about experiences that shaped us, and I guess we're going to see where that leads us. We may have some deep moments, some tears, some emotional outbursts, and things like that. But who knows? So I've got four of well, I guess I'll call it technically four of my $5 plus patrons, but really four of my friends because we've done this a whole bunch of times, and well, two other times, but I feel like I know you guys now, you guys know me, so you're not just people who contribute to the show, blah, blah, blah. We're buddies. So let's go around the room and do what we do. I'm going to go.
Already.
Yep. See, exactly. We're being deep. So I'll go through my little list, which is going to be in a different order than the rest of your little list. So Brian, you are first. Go nuts. Let us know who you are.
Hey, I'm Brian. I go by HD Brian, as I said before, and repair video games and claws at movie theaters and stuff like that, and I'm going to go into that because I wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't for PC games. I'm in the Midwest, Kansas City.
Awesome, and your job never ceases to make me go. That is really cool.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, next we got Martin.
Hey, Martin. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I install security cameras and install wires and whatnot for networks, and just really glad to be here.
Cool. Next, we have Tomer, who I have to thank for the topic, so if it goes all wrong, it's your fault.
Yeah, please to take credit and blame as well. I'm Tomer Gabel. I'm from Israel. I'm a software engineer by trade, and I have here this shitty energy drink to quench my thirst, and trolls as well as this bottle of scotch to quench my sobriety. So, looking forward to another round.
What the hell did he just bang? There's like a ton of bottles in there.
There's now scotch everywhere.
Yeah. It's just going to be sipping it off the table.
There we go. So it begins, and then trolls, who I've now referred to as my sidekick on these things. I think I came up with a nice thing on Twitter the other day, the Max to my Sam on these hangouts. So take it away, little buddy.
I love it. Wait, were we supposed to make lists? I have nothing.
You don't need to make a list. I'm just going to come up with some kind of something, and you'll go with it.
Okay. I'll try. Anyway, hi guys. I'm the Space Coast Historian, also known as Trolls or Tools in my native language. Have fun with that. I do the Backseat Designer podcast with my good buddy and hetero life mate Fred, and we do the Open Crowdsource game show that's not a real game show with our buddy Gareth Millwood. And I also do. Sorry.
Open Crown Source, wasn't it?
Open Crowdsource, yes, the uncircumcised version. And I also do Let's Plays on YouTube because I have no original thought in my head.
I want to do one of those too, and I have to say I'm really enjoying Open Crowdsource. It's tons of fun, super creative.
Thank you. You should come on the season 2.
Yeah, no, I certainly should. You just caught me because there hasn't been a real show in like a month because I've been away and doing craziness, stupid stuff.
Also, we kind of forgot to invite you for season 1. Sorry.
No, I got the invite. I just.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, I just looked at my schedule and I was like, there's no weekend that I'm free or no time that I'm free. So hopefully for season 2 I can get out there. I'm not as creative as some of the dudes out there. I'm not a game designer. I'm just I do the easy thing. I criticize.
Yeah, that's what I do. So you're most welcome on the show.
Wonderful.
Ooh, you're so damn fancy with your glass of wine.
Look at me. So yes, I am drinking some. I can't remember exactly what it is. I found it in the fridge, and hopefully my wife won't get mad at me because I drank her wine.
It's refrigerated piss, everybody.
Yes, it's very wonderful. It's a fine white, possibly from the Niagara region, just an hour or 2 hours away from here.
Possibly from some weird French guy's bladder. Anyway,
Also possible.
Before we go any further, I also do have the swear jar handy, and it will make, for you guys listening to the audio version, this sound whenever shit goes weird. Oh, wait. There you go.
That does not count.
It does not count. Okay, cool.
It's got to be more hardcore than that.
Yeah, it's gotta, like, at the very least, it's gotta start with an F and go lexicographically up from there, basically.
How about my new favorite word, cunt bucket?
That's a good one. Wow. Oh, and just FYI, if you haven't been on one of these before, the show is generally PG-13. These are not. So
I probably should have said that before I started.
Yeah, just FYI, I meant to say that before, and now I was reminded. So sorry if you got offended, but you may want to hang up now.
My apologies to everyone. No, not really. I don't care.
No. This is we're here. We're drinking. This is like it's only 3 p.m. for me, but I know Trolls and Tomer, it's definitely after dark for you guys. So
it's
this is
9 p.m. and I've already had 2 beers. So
yeah. So this is UMB after dark, even though it's mid-afternoon for me, and even earlier for Martin and Brian.
Fun fact: the Space Quest, the Backseat Designers podcast was originally called Space Quest Historian After Dark. And then it occurred to me that I actually got a co-host, so we probably should think of a different title.
I actually thought Backseat Designers was a great title.
And I believe you guys mentioned that it was inadvertent, but I do like the fact that it comes out to being BS Designers.
Yeah, bullshit designers, exactly.
Exactly. So was that an accident or was it not?
Oh, that was. I'm gonna say that was intentional.
Okay.
And we also started out calling it the saturated market because there were so many game podcasts out there. But then we figured, hey, no one's gonna know that it's about game design or adventure games. So
it's like if you listen, you won't actually know what it's about. So
we still don't know what it's about.
Isn't that what makes it the best?
Did you actually give up on a podcast, or like you went to do the crowdsource thing, which is awesome, by the way? But I'm wondering if you're sort of getting back to the normal stream at some point.
Oh, we will get back to the normal stream. We're on a hiatus with the main podcast, and Open Crowdsource is kind of the spin-off. And we did ask Gareth to be a co-host on season 3, but he said, "Nah, I like listening to you guys bicker. It's more fun." But we are going to bring in more guests. I'm going to shut up about myself. This is not my podcast.
No, this is like I said. Like I said on Twitter in our little exchange before we went live. The topic is a suggestion. The topic is something we will talk about, but this is for us to hang out and have a good time. So let's have.
Yeah, let's all talk about me. Yeah.
Exactly. We're all having a great time talking about trolls. But anyways, okay. So let's get into the topic. So experiences that changed you. So as I interpreted that, I think. Let's see. What did I write here weeks ago? So let's talk about experiences relating to either computing or gaming that affected you for the rest of your life. So that's pretty open, Tomer. Was that kind of your plan when you suggested it to me, or?
Sorta, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put it quite in those words, and certainly not with that expression. But
you mean the Canadian expression?
I have an expression.
Joe looks very Canadian right now.
I do.
Just wanted to see his face when I said that. Sorry, go ahead.
I could go get a toque or something and put on a scarf. But it's fairly warm in here. Anyways, let's get rolling.
I have no idea what a toque is.
Oh,
it's not a biscuit?
It's one of those hats, that you put on in the winter and it covers and there's a pom-pom on top.
I thought Tomer was the Jewish guy.
Well, it's cold here, so, we have to wear things to temple as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to be all Jewish to one degree or another.
It's been 100 degrees every day for the past 15 days here.
So you're good. No hats for you.
No.
Don't need to cover your ears. Okay,
What's 100 degrees in centigrade?
What is 100 degrees in centigrade? I can't remember.
It's somewhere like I want to say 60 or something like that.
No, it's not
60.
No.
I don't know.
It's
I'm
like
American. Don't ask me what centigrade is.
It's like 35-ish, something like that.
35. That's still horrible. That's my pain threshold. We had 35 degrees centigrade during the Roskilde Festival this year, and it was. I put on long pants because I'm such a fucking idiot. Sorry. And I was just sweltering.
There you go.
I just asked my uncle Google, and apparently it's 37.7-ish.
Okay, there you go. So I wasn't too far off. But that's fine.
Jesus.
Pretty hot, and it's the weather we've had here for the last week, just about.
Oh.
You guys are mad. How can you even live in weather like that?
You guys in your desert
Stay
living.
indoors.
I'm not designed for this weather, but there you are.
Nice
Yes.
to feel good though. Go out there in the field with 70 degrees with a nice breeze.
Yeah, that sounds
You guys-
comfortable.
You guys must have killer air conditioning.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, the bills are high though.
Well, you gotta pay for all the AC.
Yeah.
And what the hell are you drinking? Is that a fetus?
Oh, it's no, it's not. Being from Texas, it's a big old mason jar of sweet tea.
There you go. Gotta represent. That's it. Got sweet tea. We got Niagara region wine. Trolls are drinking some cheap German
Pittsburgh
beer.
Danish
I would
beer.
assume. Danish beer. Okay, you didn't even go German this time.
Danish beer. Royal. Supporting the local Danish conglomerates.
And Tomer's supporting Scotland.
Yep.
By way
And
by way
Brian
of
supporting his beard.
There you go.
Truly an international community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Cheers, my friends.
experiences that changed us. We can drink to that. And so who's got some stuff? Who wants to begin?
I've said too much. I'm going to let someone else take point on that one.
I can start if you guys want.
Go for it.
Yeah.
For me, I was always, I think I've talked about this before, I was always pining after the NES that my friends had. I remember going to my uncle's house, and he had an NES, and I was in love with this thing, playing just like regular Super Mario Bros. 1 and stuff like that. And so he gave me an Atari 2600, but that obviously wasn't an NES. So
No.
like around 98, my mom bought a used 8086 from a coworker, and that was my first PC with CGA graphics. You know, the 4 colors at super low resolution. So I realized that, hey, there are games for PCs, and even though I don't have, you know, the NES that my friends have, I can find games to play. And my first list of some of the earliest games I played were kind of embarrassing. It was Ford Simulator came with it, and it was.
I had Ford Simulator.
Yeah, it was on the hard drive, and it was not a good, you know, racing game, but you know.
Is that the one where you had this weird pit stop that you change tires in and stuff? Like, I only vaguely remember it.
I don't think so. I'm not. You know, I vaguely remember too, but I just remember.
It was like a really crappy version of Test Drive, sort of.
And that was the Test Drive and Stunt Drive or other simulators I played. You know, right there in like 1990 and.
Simulators being kind to these games, by the way.
Yeah, and then you know, I had all that shareware. You know, a billion shareware versions of Tetris. I remember playing a football game on it. Like Joe Montana's first. Not Joe Montana, Madden. Sorry, the first version of Madden that was on PC. Again, in CGA graphics, it was an awful game. And you know, now you look at Madden games and it's amazing. But well, the graphics at least. Then when 1991, when Commander Keen came out, that was the first. That was the first Commander Keen 4. I didn't really even realize it was the fourth one. I, in retrospect, have played 1, 2, and 3, and those are less visually appealing, but
Yeah,
4
decidedly older looking.
Yeah, and 4 is where they kind of got a very pseudo 3D, you know, instead of just walking on a straight level, it kind of had some depth on your floors you walked on, stuff like that. But even in CGA, that game looked good, and it felt for once like, hey, I'm now playing a video game that I've, you know, been dying to play at home. And to get that to run, I had to, you know, create a boot disk. I had to learn stuff like upper memory
Blocks.
UMB equals high. You know, that was the first thing I remember having to do in a config.sys. UMB equals high. You know, stuff like that. Load the highmem.sys. All that
How to
stuff.
get high before you're legal enough to do it.
There you go.
Files equals, you know, 50 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Yeah, I never knew what the hell that meant, but I just always said.
Well, that was the thing too. Is I ended up teaching myself what that stuff meant. My mom
me
was
too.
a computer programmer, but she didn't know anything about the actual hardware. So I had to figure this stuff out. When I got Wolfenstein and it sounded like crap, and when I played it at a friend's house, it sounded good. I'm like, well, I need to get a sound card because I've heard that Keen and Wolfenstein actually have amazing sound if you have a sound card. So I installed my first sound card, and once I had the sound card in and the VGA card in, I felt like I had a better gaming machine than my friends' Nintendos at that time. And then by '92, I think I finally got an NES, and I think the Super NES was already out by then. But by then my computer could way outdo what any NES could do.
Tonight on the Upper Memory Block podcast, Brian's life story.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talk about what changed your life, and literally, if I had gotten an NES when all my friends did in in '86, I wouldn't have learned about what UMB meant. So I wouldn't know what this podcast meant. I wouldn't listen to it. I wouldn't care. I'd have just done all my gaming the easy way. You put your cartridge in, you turn it on. You don't have to write autoexec.bat files and config.sys's. You don't have to put in VGA cards because the EGA card was not much better than the CGA card. None of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that really put me where I am now. I'm sorry, what was that?
Just to put things in perspective, I mean, there's a whole range of other experiences on the other end of the spectrum. If you had an NES,
And I was just playing Mario Maker before we started the podcast. I'm still a huge Nintendo fan, but I think honestly getting to play the Nintendo at friends' house and uncles' houses where it was special, kept it special in my heart too. And like I said though, if I had an NES and never had to play games on a PC, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now, fixing games and stuff like that. That was the evolution of my tech training and going to school for computer hardware and stuff like that. It all started from I just want to play a video game.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Tomer shared a link with the group to what the Force Simulator actually looks like, and I've now gone blind from the dithering. Holy shit.
That
is exactly what it looked like.
It's a Taurus, everybody. The best car in the history of the world.
That just looks fucking awful. Sorry.
And that's what the CGA graphics look like. That's what I was playing when other people were playing Mario, so I still felt inferior at that time. I felt like I was still not really getting what I wanted. I was the best I could possibly get, but like I said, by the time Wolfenstein and Keen, those games felt like real games that, Wolfenstein you couldn't play on an NES either.
Do you know my dad had two
Tomer,
of those Ford Tauruses in a row?
Oh wow! See, my mom had a Mustang, so we were big into Fords.
Oh,
so.
you guys are awesome. We suck.
What's her name? Sally? No, Tomer, you mentioned you mentioned that driving game where you go into the pit stop, and that just triggered this vague fucking memory of mine. What the hell was that game called? I distinctly remember that, where you go into the pit stop and these little dudes come out and change your tires and whatnot.
Well, I had a game on the Apple II
Commodore
called
64.
Pit Stop. It was actually called Pit Stop. I had a racing game called Pit Stop.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I had Stunt Driver where you could actually drive in a loop-to-loop like Sonic would do or
Oh, yeah,
Coaster would.
Oh yeah.
That was cool. Also had a level editor.
It ran at like 3 frames per second on my PC. So bad.
Well,
But yes,
okay,
anyway,
I guess. Yeah, I'll take this opportunity.
That was my. Oh, sorry, man, the delay. That I was going to say that's when I saw the subject of how what shaped your life. It wasn't particularly one game. If I had to choose one game, it'd be Keen because that what's made me realize that PCs could do games that I wanted, and like Wolfenstein. But if it wasn't, like I said, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. I'd probably be.
Thank our buddy Carmack for that.
Yeah, there you go. So,
Hey, have you guys noticed there's another person in the chat?
yeah,
Absolutely.
hey, what's up?
Now that we're done, I didn't want to interrupt Brian's memories.
That's all we do is interrupt each other.
That's
how
my
these things
job.
work. So Craig is joined. So Craig, why don't you say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself and all that noise.
Can you guys hear me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm a old-time gamer. I'm probably older than all of you guys combined.
I don't
but-
believe it for a second.
No, in my mid-40s, so I've been gaming since the early 80s, when some of you were still born, or not even born.
Yep.
We're stillborn? Eek.
Well, sorry, trolls.
Only some of us are stillborn.
I'm a zombie!
My background is started with an Atari 800.
Oh
Nice.
wow, nice.
and then moved to the ST realm, and then eventually PC. So
So
Very cool.
were you part of the religious war between Atari and Amiga fans? Like ST and Amiga?
no, I was, I never cared about the war. It didn't matter to me. I liked my Atari. I thought they were better, and they were in a lot of ways.
Where are you from? Where you at?
San Jose, California.
Did you grow up in the States?
I did.
Okay.
Not
What's
that
the temperature?
live in the
Yeah, we all talked about the temperature.
Yeah, you gotta know your temperatures.
Well, it was the mid 90s this past week, but it's a comfortable day today.
Again, I have to fucking look this up. Sorry.
Yeah, the centigrade.
35 and cheers.
Sorry, what?
It's like 35-ish degrees and cheers because you know.
There you go. Well, Trolls lives in like I'm trying to remember exactly Denmark in relation to like Sweden and things. So are you like is it like land of eternal winter there? Like the second it becomes like when summer ends.
Well, no, we're not. No, we're not in Finland, but
Right.
it's it's damn close. It's Sweden is like if you drive to Copenhagen and you're a really good swimmer, you can go to Sweden. So we're very close, and the climate is 35 for us, 35 centigrade is damn hot, and usually our summers are around like 25 to 30, and winters get around the chilly side might be like -5 degrees. It's not like New York where it's like in the summer it's 40 fucking degrees, and in the winter it's -20. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's here. Yeah. So yeah, like for me, it's been weird because I guess the last 3 weekends I've been away. First 2 weekends I was camping, and last weekend I was up at the mountain, doing very, very failing at mountain biking. But it was like 30, 32, 35 every weekend, except this weekend, except tomorrow particularly, when I'm doing an 80-kilometer bike ride, and it's going to be cold and raining. So.
Oh, good.
You're
Wear
talking
gloves.
Celsius, right?
Yeah, I'm talking Celsius.
So it's like 90 degrees Fahrenheit for us U.S. people.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But except for tomorrow when it's going to be like 18, which is probably, I don't know, in the 60s, and raining, and I'm going to be riding my bike for 4 hours. So.
Oh, we could live in California where there's no rain.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, yeah. We're going to have to start trucking water in here soon.
Yeah, I shouldn't complain too much. There's nothing threatening to burn my house down, or I can drink water and water my grass if I need to. Not that I ever do.
Water your grass, right? We all know what you mean.
No, that's Colorado, Trolls.
Okay, never mind. Danish weather is kind of like Danish people, quite non-committal. It never snows enough to be so you can ski or have any fun in it, and it's never hot enough that you want to really take off your pants and run nude on the beach, kind of thing. It's just kind of blah. It's not UK blah, but it's close to blah.
So on this week's Upper Memory Block podcast, we're talking about worldwide weather phenomena.
Things that shaped you and also weather.
Okay, so what else we got for things that shaped you? So Brian went. Who else wants to go?
I'll go.
Okay, go for it.
All right.
Go for it, Captain.
So, as many
like the shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Oh yeah, I love that shirt, man.
Mm-hmm.
No, as many know, I didn't grow up with the PC. All the PC experience that I got was with my dad, and I got a lot of hand-me-down stuff. So I was mostly a big console guy, and up until I was 10 years old, I just loved games, and I'd just get a game to beat it, or try to just to feel good about beating it, and so forth. But when I was 11, I was hit by a car, and I was bedridden for about 6 months.
Wow.
Well, that took a turn.
Yeah. That
told you we were going to get deep today, guys.
Yeah. And what had happened is that it was January of '99, and Ocarina of Time had come out a few months before, and I was a Nintendo Power subscriber, and I've never played a Zelda game before. I take that back. I had played a Zelda game before, but I didn't know it was Zelda. My very first Zelda game I played was Link to the Past, but I had no idea what it was. And
it's the Mario 2 of the Zelda games, weird and different. And...
yeah.
Oh no, sorry. Link to the Past was that was the third one, right?
Yeah, the third one. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm thinking of the second one.
Yeah.
Link's Adventure.
Yeah, Link's Adventure.
Yeah.
No, but, the first time I saw a Zelda game, I just happened to walk into the sequence that he pulls out the Master Sword in the woods, and that well, I always thought that was a really cool scene. But when I got Ocarina of Time in the hospital, it was the very first time a game had like blown me away because it blew a lot of people away. To be honest, it was a very amazing transition from 2D to 3D.
Hmm.
And a homicidal game, apparently. Sorry.
And I just remember getting sucked into it, and the whole time I was bedridden from about the first week I was in the hospital to about 2 weeks before I was able to walk again. I had beaten that entire game, and it was the first time that I realized that games could be more than just a time waster. That the game inspired me because I had lost a lot of physical abilities. To this day I still have a lot of problems. I can't join the military. I can't be physically active. And so I lost a lot of what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
So what I realized is that these video games could do much more than just be time wasters, and I really wanted to be a game designer. So right up until a few years ago when I needed to really buckle down on myself. But since then I've learned how to 3D model, and I know how to code in C# a little bit, and I've been working with Unity, and I went to college for it. And all of my good friends are now working in the game design industry, but all my personal all who I am is basically built around Ocarina of Time and video games since then, like what they can be and what they can do for people.
Oh, that's amazing.
Holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Did not expect us to go that deep right off the bat.
Did anybody else have bedridden games? My bedridden game was Myst when I had mono.
Oh wow.
Fuck me with a stick.
I couldn't even lift my head up, so I had the monitor on its side on my nightstand, playing point and click Myst. It was great.
I had
Jesus.
mono when I
Oh,
was 6, so I wasn't I wasn't capable. God, I think I almost died there when my parents were like, yeah, we thought we were gonna lose you when you had mono. I was a scrawny little kid, if you can believe it.
I don't. Do you guys want to know what my bedridden game was?
I don't know. I'm afraid.
Aside from
It
masturbating.
was when. Yeah.
Oh!
Vigorously.
I'm guessing Leisure Suit Larry or some such.
It's worse than that. When I was in the United States as an exchange student for a year, I came down with some, one of those bad fevers where you kind of you're like puking and shitting all over the place simultaneously, and I had set up my computer monitor next to the bed, like literally next to the bed, so I could lie down with the keyboard and mouse on the mattress and play. And guess what I played? The 11th hour. What kind of self-torture is that shit?
I love the 7th guest, but man, the 11th hour was...
The 11th hour was just silly. The only good thing that came out of that was that this other exchange student who lived in the same neighborhood as me, this Czech girl, came over, and there's this puzzle in the 11th hour that's basically a Connect 4 game that you play against the AI, or play against Stoff, whatever you want to call it. And she found a bug in the game where if you did, and I don't actually remember what you do, but if you put the bit in the right place, you can fool the AI every single time. And she just worked that out all on herself.
Hey trolls! Right up until about 10 seconds ago, you had a really, really good beginning for a porn film.
The Czech girl that came by,
and then you just fucked it up. Sorry, Mike.
Save it for open crowdsource.
Then we played Nintendo or the 11th hour, whatever.
We have to get Tomer in for open crowdsource too. I think he'd be brilliant at it.
Oh,
also, Open Crown. I hear they circumcise a lot in Israel, so yeah, you'd be perfect for it.
Oh yeah. Be open. I don't know.
Will you be displaying your Open Crown, sir? No,
yes,
sorry.
I would love to.
So anyway, that was my sick game. I haven't even gotten to my spiel yet. Someone else.
So we took Martin's
or maybe
very deep, heartfelt story and turned it into masturbation, and sick games, and circumcision.
I know what I do.
Welcome to the Hangout. Okay, who else? And if you guys think of other stories, even if you quote unquote already went or whatever, feel free to drop in something else. And I got a couple things.
That comes later.
I could go next.
Yeah, go for it.
As well.
So this is actually also my credit-ridden story, but I would go with, in no like I do, contrary to Trolls, I actually do have a list. So I'm gonna pick one at random, and that's Civilization. Game. So I must have spent, like, the game came out when I was, I think, like 8, and I played it. Like, I didn't own a machine that could play it at the time because we only had this crappy IBM PC clone. So I actually pretty much took over a neighbor's house for half a year. Like, she was there was this whole family there, and the woman was a very good friend of my mother's, and we pretty much know each other. Like, the families would know each other and hang out very often. So I sort of monopolized their computer for the next 6 months to play Civilization, and that's sort of all I did. And that includes a time in which I was ostensibly too sick to go to school, but I could trudge the half block of their house, go to the second floor, and play Civilization until like 2 o'clock at night, when my mom panicking, just came in to check if I was there by any chance, because they were looking for me for like 4 hours at the time.
Calling the police and
just about, yeah. So that's a
have you seen my boy? And just shows his foreskin to the police dog. No, stop it.
What did that game taught? This was the first game that I had played for any meaningful length of time. I could never play a single game for more than, I don't know, an hour at a time. Back then, I was really, really young, but this was the first game that sort of taught me that games that suck you in can literally suck you in, and you forgo sleep. It's this one more turn sort of experience that Civilization is infamous for this day and age. So
yeah, I won't say it necessarily invented it, but when I think of a one more turn game, it's Civilization. Like, I think I've never played Civilization for less than 2 hours. You sit down and you're like, okay, I'm just going to do a little bit, and then it's like 6 hours later and you're like, oh, God.
I don't know that it defines the phenomenon, but it definitely epitomizes it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one. It's sort of like Doom is not really the first-person shooter, but it is, either that or Wolfenstein 3D, or the ones everyone thinks of.
Or like the definition of a third-person shooter, not necessarily, yeah. They defined the genre, they made the genre what it is, so you consider them to be kind of
like the canon.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to live up to my reputation as an annoying person who interrupts a lot. But the page turner kind of game for me was, oddly enough, Syndicate.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely terrible at playing Syndicate. I'm really, really terrible. But for some reason, I just had to keep playing, because every time I fucked it up, I had to go in and see if I could do it again, just to see what the hell I did wrong. And every once in a while, you just throw your guys out in a suicide mission or something. But for some reason, I kept playing Syndicate, even though I could only get to like level 5 or something.
Yeah, and speaking of Syndicate, I know I actually, because of our good friend Ben Chandler, I was reminded that I actually backed Satellite Rain and I installed it. I have yet to play it, but if Ben's anyone to go by, it's like the most incredible game in the history of the world. So.
I really want to try that game. It looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust anything Ben Chandler says, because he loves mazes in adventure games. Hi, Ben.
And,
I know he's listening to this. I love you, you long-haired weirdo.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, Civilization, what I do, I think a lot of people do this with Civilization, is that I don't play it for years. And then I install it and I play it for like 3 months, like all-consumingly, and then I leave it alone again because I know I don't have the time to do it properly.
I love the use of the word all-consumingly.
Yeah.
Like you're in a cult or something. That's
Civilization. If there's something if there's a game that is all-consuming, it's that, or like World of Warcraft, or Civilization, or some MMO.
When you play Civilization, it's basically at the exclusion of everything else. It's
yes.
Like, you forget to go to the bathroom for like 7 hours straight, and then you realize you're about to blow up.
Yeah, and given this show, I don't have the luxury of playing the game all-consumingly.
Or as Joe said, World of Warcraft.
Yes, absolutely. Cat in the way.
Kitty! I played a bunch of Civilization. I played a bunch of SimCity. the old MS-DOS games, and I'm terrible at them. That's when I found out that I'm really, really terrible at strategy games in general. But for some reason, I just kept plugging away at Civilization and SimCity and Syndicate for some odd goddamn reason, and Warcraft, the first the first and second Warcraft games.
Mm-hmm.
Hey kids, remember those? Back when we had LAN parties, those were fun.
Hey, I still have my I still have my original copy of Warcraft 1.
Really, it's for some reason the voice acting is really what caught me. I mean, the dude who what's his name, Bill something. The guy who does all the human voices and all the orc voices, and he's also the dude who designed the game, apparently.
Oh,
Bill Roper.
Bill Roper, that's the one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
my dad.
My
dad used to have. Yeah, my dad used to have boxes and boxes of old games, and he kept all the boxes of the games, including Warcraft 1 and 2. And now he threw them all away when I was in college.
No.
I mean, I can't complain. I've told the story a million times, and a bunch of people are going to get upset when I tell it again. But, a few months before I started the show, yeah, my parents were moving out of their house, and they're like, what do you want us to do with all these old game boxes? And I was busy or something, and I said, get rid of them. And so they're all gone. And they were all
awful person.
So looking at your bookshelf behind you, Joe, at one point I had 2 bookcases that size full of games dating back from 1990 to probably 2001, 2002, and then we bought a house, and I decided to get rid of them all. And the reason why so the reason why I had all these, and I can give you a little bit of background on me, is
sure.
I worked at Creative Labs from 1992 through 1995.
Applause, everyone! Applause.
Right when the Sound Blaster Pro and the Sound Blaster 16 took off, and I had friends in developer relations, so I ended up with tons of games. And of course, now I look back on it going, why did I sell them all?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Craig, I would like to...
Or why didn't I hold on to them until now and sell them, because now they're worth something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Craig, I want to give you guys a big shout out. I know you probably didn't invent the Sound Blaster, but you were there.
Close enough for us, right?
Yeah, close enough for us. I really want to give a big shout out because you are the catalyst between the greatest discussion I've ever had with my dad. It was installing our first Sound Blaster 16 into my computer and playing Leisure Suit Larry 1, the VGA remake, and going, was that a digital part or not?
Well, I'll give you even one further, Trolls. My first year at Creative, I was in tech support. So this is back when people had no Windows. This was all DOS. So set blaster equals A220, I5, D1.
H5.
There you go.
God, I can only imagine DOS tech support over the phone. Like, okay, so type edit auto exec.bat.
Actually, I probably mostly use CopyCon because it's just easier to instruct people on it.
Right.
Well, there was a reason why we all went out drinking beers and getting 50-cent tacos every Friday after tech support weeks.
Oh, by the way, just a quick poll. Who set their IRQ to 5 instead of 7?
Oh, that'd be me.
Yep, me too. For some reason, it made my Sound Blaster work better. I have no idea why. Some games like One Must Fall 20 something wouldn't run with IRQ 7.
Well, we got support here, so we'll find out.
Why did we ask you to change it from IRQ 7 to IRQ 5?
You didn't. I just randomly found out on my own.
Because your printer port used IRQ 7.
I did not have a printer. Try again, please.
But
hey,
you had
but the port was still there.
Your LPT1 port used IRQ 7. Yeah, it was a headache.
It did. Oh,
that was
really?
why I only lasted.
Wait a minute. You're right. I did have a printer at one point. This old fucking dot matrix. Sorry. This old fucking dot matrix printer. Yeah. And actually, I asked my dad if I could get that back, and also his old handheld scanner, so I could make some glitch art. Scan a picture in and screw it up, and then print it out on dot matrix. Yeah, exactly. It's just mess up the lines, print it out, then scan it in again, and just go, hey, glitch art. For album covers and shit.
Okay, we had one of those, and I was really obsessed with our handheld scanner because I would try and scan in photos from my Star Wars source books because there was really cool Star Wars art in there, and it all looked like crap. It was horrible, but
it took forever.
No, Craig's gone in his closet.
That's too bad because I was gonna troll him. Oh, there he is.
I can't wait to see what he got.
So Craig,
What'd you get?
Syphilis. No, that's
what
not
is
fun.
that? Blaster.
Anybody know what that is?
Here,
Pro
let's,
2.0.
Yeah, that's the old Sound Blaster.
Pro 2.0, I think.
awesome.
Yeah, I still have some stuff hanging around.
Hold it up again, please. Hold it up again. Oh, never mind.
Here. No,
I can.
Hold it up and talk so the camera stays
No,
on
it's
you.
okay. There, I'll force it to present. There we go. Oh, look at that.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Look at that beauty.
analog knob there for the sound too, the potentiometer.
Oh, yeah,
cool.
I remember.
Craig, does that have like daughterboard pins in it? You can like hook up.
No, this isn't a 16. This is a Sound Blaster. I gotta look at the 1991. This is an original Sound Blaster because it actually has the volume control knob.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
A number of them did actually. The old Sound Blaster Pro 2.0 that I had at the time also had one. So that's inconclusive, but you had the model number on it. So if anyone feels like looking it up. Anyway,
I might actually be remembering shit wrong because I might have actually-
CT1350A.
I might have had the
Google
old
it.
8-bit
1350p,
Sound
I'm
Blaster.
sorry.
Because I did have the volume knob. Did the 16 have a volume knob? I don't even think so.
No, by the 16, I think they moved over to software. Mixed.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So I was remembering wrong. I had an 8-bit Sound Blaster thing with the volume knob and everything, and then I got a 16 and I got a Roland Sound Canvas daughterboard that basically looked like two circuit boards humping.
Oh, no, Brian's going into his closet.
do you remember the ASP moniker from the old Sound Blaster 16?
Yep.
It stood for Advanced Signal Processor or something. It was basically the hardware, software configured hardware mixer chip that they had on it, the DSP.
So by the time that came out, I was doing sales for the company, so yeah, I knew all that stuff.
Oh, dear God. Okay, can I tell a brief story? I'm going to tell a bunch of stories,
Sure.
but my brief story. One of the things that shaped me as a kid was getting a sound card and playing Dave the Tentacle for the first time. Just the fact that on the disc version people were talking in the intro, and then I got the CD-ROM version in my old one-speed clamshell kind of thing, and then playing that and going, holy bejesus, these guys are actually talking through the entire game. And the Sound Blaster was definitely a huge part of that. I mean, I suppose I probably had a knockoff Sound Blaster before I got a real creative Sound Blaster because the knockoff just wouldn't work with some games or some bullshit. But anyway, yeah, sound cards were a major turning point from me just going, well, this game is kind of fun, but whatever, PC speakers stuff and such, and then going, holy bejesus, these guys actually talk. Multimedia. That was a defining moment for me.
See,
Oh,
Sound
yeah.
Blaster was the first thing I added to my PC too.
Yeah, I remember when I got my first Sound Blaster. I wasn't at Creative at the time, and I found the cheapest place in the area, and I was able to get my Sound Blaster. It was a Sound Blaster Pro for it wasn't a Pro, it was original Sound Blaster for $150, and the first game I played was King's Quest V, and to go from no sound to synthesized MIDI was just amazing.
And going from no sound to Cedric.
Yes, to Cedric.
Fuck Cedric. That one.
I'll drink to that.
Anybody else remember their first hardware install?
I think mine was probably
sounds
it was an imitation Sound Blaster. It was a Sound Blaster emulator, and yeah, that was probably my first one. Though my dad might have done that one. If not, it was my my actual Sound Blaster 16. And I remember getting very upset and very nervous because it would not go in the damn slot. And I was pressing on it really hard, and at one point I thought I might have broken it. But eventually I was able to get it jammed in there.
Nice.
I got a new video card. I can't remember what it was. It was right around the time Call of Duty 2 came out for the PC, and I was so excited to get this new video card in there because I just built my first computer. Me and my dad, he sat me down and we built my first computer together, and I put it in there, and I probably played Call of Duty 2 for about a good 2 hours or so, and I'm loving the hell out of it. And I remember being in this firefight, and someone was they'd be throwing a bunch of smoke grenades. The AI was, and I remember hiding in a building, and I'm like, wow, this is like the graphics are so good, it's so realistic. I can even smell the smoke from the smoke grenades. And then it hit me. I'm like, wait a minute, that's actual smoke. And I look up, and my computer it's just boom of smoke is coming out of my, and I yank out the power cord, and I'm just like, I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it turns out that in my haste to install the video card, I did not look up the specs of my power supply. And I had burnt out my power supply.
Literally smoked your power supply. Nice.
And the game was still running. Now that's
Yeah,
a trooper.
it was.
That's a real trooper.
Right up until I pulled the cord, it was still working.
That is awesome.
My first 3D
That's the
card.
best story I've heard so far. He's just sitting there playing, going, "This is so realistic," and his curtain's on fire.
I smell the smoke.
That's awesome. Dude, my first 3D card was that Voodoo add-on where it didn't do 2D. You still needed your 2D card.
Yeah,
and you
I had
a
that one too.
pass-through cable to your Voodoo, yeah.
Now, did you do it internal? Because I think, was there an internal cable or an external? Because I did it external. It was just like a...
Yeah, I did external, yeah.
The internal cable was only with the Voodoo 2. It was for Pi. It was for running 2 Voodoo cards in parallel for speed-ups.
Yeah. See, by Voodoo 2, they finally realized, oh, we could go ahead and put 2D on the same card and
charge more money.
I never had a Voodoo card. Do you know what my first 3D video card was? The Matrix Mystique.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was
a piece of shit.
Yes, a piece of shit.
My God, that did not work at all. It crashed all the time. I mean, that may have been the first circuit board I ever took out of my computer and literally just tried to break it in two.
And growing up in the west end of Montreal, I would actually drive by Matrox almost every day to get onto the highway. And when I was a kid and then going through high school and stuff, I would drive by there and I would dream that, oh, one day I'm going to work there and we're going to make video cards and it's going to be awesome. And you know what? I never did, so it doesn't matter.
Burn the house down. Burn them all.
But yeah, so that's lots of.
So enough.
Yeah,
and I also had some reason my dad went out and bought the Millennium, the Matrix Millennium. It was no better. It was just
also reportedly had like really lousy 2D performance and compatibility.
Oh, it was shit.
When I got my Millennium, it did great for Duke Nukem 3D. I remember that was the card I got that made Duke Nukem 3D fly.
I think you remember reading, maybe I got it wrong, it was a different model perhaps. And at some point we basically switched to not giving a shit about DOS because, you know, there wasn't much of a market for it, and from that point on, compatibility with DOS, like the VBE implementations, just went to shit.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no 3D acceleration in Duke Nukem 3D.
No, there was not. So it was still doing the 2D stuff. So no, you're probably right. It still was probably a crap card, but it had enough RAM that it was able to handle.
It served the purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Millennium actually was supposed to have had just amazing 2D performance in DOS, but I think the cutoff point was maybe the Mystique. I'm not sure actually, but at some point they just went shitty.
All I know is at one point I got a really good OpenGL video card, which meant I couldn't play Carmageddon in 3D accelerated, but who wants to anyway? It looks awful. But it worked well with Half-Life and Quake and such. It looked fantastic. And then it broke at one point, just flat out broke. I didn't do anything to it. Sorry, Dad. And then I went in and go, Dad, my fucking video card just crapped out on me. And he just goes, well, we have this backup, and he pulls out the fucking Mystique.
So, I'd rather play nothing.
Like, I'm already dead. Why are you doing this to me?
And I guess because of... Oh, go ahead, Craig.
I was going to say, I was fortunate enough that my first video card was a Voodoo because going back to Creative, one of the guys I used to work with at Creative ended up at 3DFX, so he was kind enough to seed me with a card.
Beautiful.
So going from Tomb Raider and software rendering to 3D and seeing Quake when they did the Quake GL patch was like night and day.
Oh man, I just stared at textures when I got Quake to work in GL.
Oh. Yeah, well, I mean exactly. It wasn't even bother playing the game. It was just like, wow, look at how different this looks.
And then when I figured out how to turn on transparent water, I just stared at the water.
You're remember the old Final Reality demo from Remedy? From before they did like.
Oh yeah. It was non-interactive, right?
It was not interactive because it was basically a demo scene production just under a commercial company's name, because that's what Remedy spawned off of, the old Future Crew. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was practically
Future Crew.
Yeah.
Future
So it
Crew,
was
wow.
pretty much the first time I've ever seen 3D acceleration was at a demo party in Israel in '97, and the guy showcased both Quake GL and Final Reality, and I just basically crapped my pants.
I just love the idea of a LAN party in Israel. People, walking around with their cabinets and going into this huge building and going, "Hey, did your computer just crash from the heat as well?" Yeah, it did. Yeah, cool.
Well, we did those too.
So how many
gentlemen,
copies of MechWarrior 2 did everyone have?
No, none. Gentlemen, if you're going to talk about MechWarrior, that's a good excuse as any. Oh my God, what the hell's happening to my vocabulary? As good an excuse as any to hit the porcelain.
Oh, I take it out a MechWarrior fan.
Yep. Screw MechWarrior. I'm out.
So Joe, I assume
Please go.
your first
I wanna
LAN
see your
party
face.
games?
Oops, sorry. 4 people talking at the same time.
Sorry, Joe, was MechWarrior one of your LAN party games?
I wasn't much into LAN parties. I played a lot of modem MechWarrior 2 against people, but yeah, so I guess I bought, the original software render MechWarrior 2. Then I got the Voodoo card, so I got, MechWarrior 2 Voodoo Edition, and then I got something else, so I got MechWarrior 2 OpenGL Edition. So I think by the end of, I don't know, by the mid 90s or the late 90s, I probably had 4 copies of MechWarrior 2, but I'd only actually bought one.
I think Descent was my first modem game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, playing with my brother. Yeah.
No, I played a lot of modem-wise. We definitely played a lot of Doom 2. I think, yeah, my friends and I would definitely play a lot of Doom 2.
I never got a chance to do a modem-to-modem dial-up stuff, but I used to play a lot of StarCraft over the internet when I ever got my internet card. See, I didn't know much about stuff, so I thought I had a 56K, but really I had a 32K.
Oh, nice.
And all my friends were always complaining about how it would bring the game to a crawl.
Because how would it work? Would it throttle to the slowest connection, or?
Yeah, well, it had to. I remember I would tell my unit to go somewhere, and it would wait 5 seconds or so, like literally 5 seconds before it would give me affirmative, and they would start moving. It was bad.
You know what, Martin? You're not missing much modem-to-modem play. It's overrated.
Yeah, when I was in high school, and we would go a little bit retro, and I remember using my dad's laptop, which had a modem port on it, because I couldn't find any more modem cards anymore. But I used my dad's laptop with a modem port to play the original Command & Conquer with a friend of mine, and we had a blast with that.
That was probably the thing I played the most. Modem to modem. For some reason, I never really got into internet play, but I guess because I was big into, my friends and I were big into BBSs. We had modems, back in the day before the internet. So yeah, we'd play a lot of modem to modem. So yeah, a lot of modem to modem Command and Conquer, and yeah, just what's it called, skirmishes, just
Yeah. Here you go, Joe. I'm going to digress here on BBS talk for a second and say, here's something that shaped me.
Okay.
Back in the Atari ST days, I ran a pirate BBS that had 4 floppy disks online, and I was one of the most popular pirate BBS runners in the Bay Area. My mom had no clue what was going on in my bedroom in the house.
I came back at just the right time.
Yeah, I had. If anybody knows old Atari hardware, I had 2 810s and 2 1050s online on a 1200 baud modem.
Jeez.
Oh,
wonderful. Yeah, I came in with a 2400, and yeah, I loved some of the old Montreal pirate BBSs. Get on there, get your stuff, download, a meg in an hour, if not more.
Yeah.
I'm still so jealous of you guys being into the BBS culture and stuff. I mean, my dad got a modem, and he was very into it, and he would not let me play with it, and I was too young. I'm born in 1980, so I really had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was just sitting around messing around with Deluxe Paint and playing Lose Suit Larry. So I really didn't know what I was doing. I'm really jealous about people who are really into BBS culture, because that sounds like a lot of fun, and I really wish I was into that. But we didn't. Yeah.
The thing that was weird about it for me is I don't know how I got into it, because I think I might have said I've definitely said it on the show, but I don't think I've said it on the Hangouts. Until our Pentium, we never really bought computers. We would always just get computers somehow. Like one day my dad would show up with we had an XT, and then one day he'd show up with a 286, and then one day
wearing a ski mask.
Yes, exactly. And then one day I was at his office, and he'd have a 386 in his office, and I'd say, "Oh, can we bring that home?" And he said, "Well, if you ask my business partner." Whoops.
Oh shit! Tomer just exploded.
A little bit.
So yeah, and I was a super shy kid, so it was like a challenge for me. So my dad said, if you ask my business partner, who he already knew and he was going to say yes, if you could have the 386, then I'll bring it home. So I went and I screwed up my courage and I said, "Oh, could we have the 386? You guys aren't using it; it's just sitting in the corner." And he's like, "Yeah, whatever." Whatever. So
I just want to picture little Joe running up to this guy. This guy's in a business suit. Just go, "Can we have your computer, mister?" He just goes, "Fuck it."
Whatever, I don't care. I'm rich.
Forget for the fact that the guy might have been driving a Ferrari, right?
Oh, he was.
Can I have your Ferrari?
It was like this dude in the Silicon Valley TV show. This dude just pulls up and goes, "Hey, you ever had a steak? Come with me."
Yeah, and so
what's interesting, Trolls, is BBS culture. Me being I'm 45, so I was about 12, 13 in 82, 83. BBS culture was really neat because pre-internet, you actually had to dial up and do message boards with people and talk to them. And we actually made multiple attempts at getting together and meeting people, which was it was like this kind of a hangout, but only live.
I will. We should probably do a roundtable at some point and just find out how old people are. I was like I said, I was born in 1980, and I remember sitting around wishing that chat had been invented. And this is kind of a sad story, really. I would sit around and type at my DOS prompt and just pretend that people were talking back to me, just getting bad command or file name after it. Tober's face right now is priceless.
No, I'm just saying that explains a lot.
and then I got on IRC, which is really fantastic, especially if you were a teenager in the early 90s. Getting on IRC was all sorts of fun because parents have no idea what the hell is going on, and you're just sitting there chatting to people who you're probably likely never going to meet, but then we got on this channel and we did end up meeting, renting out not conference, these little party hall kind of things, and just trashing the hell out of the place because we were all like 14 or 15 years old drinking beers, and our parents didn't even know where the hell we were, and IRC was a defining moment in my life, definitely. So that's as close to BBS culture as I got.
Yeah, I think I missed the days of BBSs where you actually dialed up, and it made looking for software a lot more interesting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I always thought it was a very interesting thing. Like, once I actually thought about what I was really doing, I was literally dialing into somebody else's computer.
Exactly.
And accessing files on their computer and transferring them over the phone line via noise to my computer.
I agree that on the one hand, it always felt like a lot more personal an experience than it is to visit a website or a forum, whatever. But then I also realized that it makes me sound kind of like a crotchety old man because it's kind of like. Back in the day when the village was small and everyone knew everyone else, the village got freaking big, so deal with it.
No, it makes you sound like a hipster. I did this before. It was cool, man.
It was cool to dial up the Sierra Online BBS because you wanted to get the hint file for Police Quest 1 or King's Quest 4 instead of going online and watching the playthrough.
I don't think my parents would approve of an overseas phone call just to figure out how to get past, something or another in Space Quest 6.
I always convinced my parents to buy me the hint book, even though it was like $30.
Oh man, that's expensive.
You're talking about parents and charges. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I have a great relationship with my parents. I can tell them pretty much anything. I mean, the first time I dropped acid, I went home and told my parents, "Hey," they asked, "Where have you been?" And I said, "Yeah, I was on acid the entire evening. How have you been?" But
Oh, we had a nice dinner.
but just we had a very nice dinner, and then I looked at the couch for 6 hours. But you know, going to those you know, first LAN parties and you know, going to meet friends on IRC that I you know, only seen as, you know, little bits of text on a screen and such. I mean, my parents were very forgiving, but I don't think they know to this day what the hell went on at those parties. I mean, I know where your mind is going. It wasn't like complete debauchery, like everyone taking off their clothes and just bouncing around on pillows. But it could have been that, and they still don't know to this day.
Unless they're watching this hangout.
Stunned silence. Cool.
Dun, dun, dun.
Anybody remember the Sierra Network?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I ever actually logged into it, but I definitely read about it a lot and got excited about it because I think there was a feature in it in one of the Interaction magazines. And
Yep.
Yeah, just hearing you guys talk about BBSs and log into that kind of stuff, it just always interests me because that's something I never got to experience ever. I mean, my first internet experience was AOL, so this whole other little world of what it used to be like before the internet was more varied. Just this is one of the reasons why I love listening to Upper Memory podcasts because I just hear and learn about stuff all the time.
Well, Sonny, we want to make sure you understand where computer gaming came from.
Yeah.
But sure, I mean, I really want to do. I know Brian from Squareways. That was kind of one of their first series of shows. If you go back and listen, I guess maybe the first 3 episodes was all about BBSing. But I really want to do kind of a special where I talk about door games because I don't think it's enough to talk. Like talking about one door game for an hour is kind of ridiculous. But yeah, there was just a ton of really great BBS door games that I played, like Barren Realms and Trade Wars and Legend of the Red Dragon and stuff. And these were all like text, you know, ANSI graphics, and it was kind of like. Go ahead.
Sorry to interject, but you know, they were discussing Legend of the Red Dragon on Square Waves as well, and now you mentioned it, and you mentioned that it's all text. And I was wondering if anyone ran into the RIP standard.
I did not. Anyone else?
So, assuming I remember the acronym right, which I probably do, but I haven't actually looked it up ever, so I probably should. But it was a weird kind of add-on thing to both BBS software and basically terminal software that had this kind of miniature vector format for graphics. So it was sort of like the way AGI was it AGI, the Sierra interface, the Sierra engine from.
Yeah, that's the one.
AGI was our first
vector graphics. Yeah.
So it's sort of the same, like vector graphics, flood fills, that sort of thing. It was very rudimentary. It's sort of like a really kind of basic SVG, I guess you could say, basic subset of SVG nowadays. Mm-hmm. And Legend of the Red Dragon actually had a version that supported it. And I vaguely recall that the add-on for whatever terminal software I used was called RipCurl, but I'll have to look it up. But it was awesome because it was, you know, it was essentially the same game, except instead of ANSI graphics, it actually had like proper vector graphics if you had support on the client for it. And that was pretty cool. I'll try and look it up.
The old Atari 8-bit computers had their ATASCII graphics, which was an enhanced ASCII.
Yeah, but that's not quite the same, though. I meant like proper vector, like, you know, full 2D vector space, like not approximate blocky ANSI art. So, you know, even an extended ASCII set is still, you know, ASCII. You get like typically 8x8 characters or some such.
Sure.
So that's the best you could do.
So Trolls is very kindly in the chat asking if we do a quick age check on everybody if no one's opposed or offended by telling us how old you are, just for a frame of reference. So I was born in '81. I think that means I'm 34, right?
I am still surprised that I'm older than you, really, because you're the wise and sage older,
God.
Wikipedia master. So I'm still surprised at that.
I'm just some dumb idiot. That's all.
I'm 36, so I'm like a couple years older than you, Trolls.
I was
1 year.
37. 37. Sorry, 37.
I turned 35 this year.
I was born in '88, so that makes me 27.
Oh, you were the baby.
Jesus,
There
on
you
a
go.
stick.
I'm a good middle of the road, 32.
All right, so we're
And I'm the old guy at 45.
there. You go.
Cool.
You look younger than I do, dude.
Yeah, well,
You got an amazing beard, so yeah.
Yeah, man, your beard's rocking.
Mhm.
It is.
See,
Makes
I
my
can't,
beard
I
jealous.
can't, I can't grow a beard. I can't grow any beard because my hair grows in one direction. So, like, if I grow it out, I look like Inspector Detective from Speed Racer.
You should definitely do that. That's a skill unto its own. It'll get you into the software industry in a heartbeat.
So yeah, it's just me and Trolls that are the unbearded.
I had a full beard at one point, but that's because my shaver broke. So
I would love to see a
and
picture of that.
I look like a homeless person, really. It's all scraggly and weird and sticks out in weird places. And this, the left side of my chin doesn't grow out as fast as the right side of my chin, but it just looks like it just looks like someone took a crap on my chin, really.
Joe, you were rocking an awesome beard last winter, weren't you?
Yes, I was, and if I can convince my wife, it will come back. But I'm not winning that fight right now.
No, so here's the thing. Kissing with a beard is not good for the person on the receiving end.
Yes,
Unless
exactly.
they have a beard too.
You can speak from personal experience, I think.
Yep. At least for me. I mean, if you kiss someone and they go, "Ooh, that tickles," it's like, no, it wasn't supposed to do that.
But yeah,
Silence again.
Well, once you get it long enough, it stops being the prickly tickly.
yeah, then it starts being soft and nice, especially if you take care of it.
Yeah.
So has
I've got-
everyone
I've-
said something yet, or has someone?
I've got an emotional story.
Oh yes,
yeah.
of course. We haven't gotten Trolls. Do it.
I've just been interrupting everyone else.
That's okay. That's what you do. That's your job here.
I do. I know my dad doesn't listen to any of the stuff I do, and if he does, sorry, Dad, but I started smoking. Very sorry. You kind of knew that already, but hey. But I do want to give a special shout out to my dad because he was a defining part of me as a computer nerd and growing up and stuff. I mean, he was an electrical engineer, and I think I've talked about this before. He was an electrical engineer who decided in the early 80s that he wanted a computer but couldn't afford one, so he just sat down in his little lab in our basement and just built one. And the only thing it had was like a little LED screen with characters that could scroll across it, and then it had like half of a keyboard, like half an alphanumerical keyboard, and he made this little Wheel of Fortune game, but only half of the keys were there, so it was kind of an unfair game. And then he got out and bought the Commodore 64, and then I got my first PC at my confirmation. That's a Danish thing; it's not a Catholic thing. And by the time that I got my first PC, my brother and I had a Nintendo as well, but that was more of a toy than anything else. But when we got our PCs, we went into it hardcore. Like we would pop the motor hood on that thing and just put in graphic cards, sound cards, and like build our own shit. And my dad had this, and still does have this little office space of his, which is just chock full to the brim of old, cards, old sound cards, old video cards, old CRT monitors and stuff like that. So if ever anything broke or you poured, Coke all over your keyboard, which I did several times, you would just go to him and go, "Dad, my shit broke," and he'd just go, "Fine, I have 4 video cards in my closet. Here, take your pick." So
They're all by
my
Matrix.
dad was really, yeah, they're all by fucking Matrix too. So my dad really shaped me into the nerd that I am today, and I really couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah,
That's my
that's
heartfelt
great.
story.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably say the same thing. Like my dad was a programmer back in the day. He programmed primarily in DBase, And yeah, so we always, because of him, we always had a computer. You know, it was because, you know, it was for work and computers were serious business and blah blah blah. And you know, you could like type a story on it or something, but games weren't really a thing that he was into at all. But I started getting into them, and we got an Apple II back, you know, eventually, even though that wasn't something that was our first home computer. And he did get us some games for it, and I think that's
Mystery House.
Yeah.
Time Zone. Ah, fuck that shit.
Yeah, that's, you know, I don't know, maybe it's more similar than I thought, because my father, he started playing video games while he was working in the silos, nuclear silos, when he was an officer in the Air Force. Go imagine
What
that.
the hell is going on with your family?
Well,
You guys get hit by cars and you work in nuclear silos?
he was an officer during the Cold War, and he was just assigned to one of the silos, so he had to watch on the button.
Have you ever seen an alien autopsy live? I just want to know.
No,
Pretend the NSA is not listening.
not a live one.
I
Not
just,
a live one.
I just have a mental image of a guy in the control room of like a, you know, a nuclear power plant or whatever, playing Doom, while the whole thing is overloading in the back.
Well, it wouldn't have been Doom. It would have been Ninja Gaiden.
That's right.
Fair enough.
My dad's a beast at Ninja Gaiden. He recorded himself. I have tons of recordings of my dad beating various Nintendo games.
God, and that was a painfully difficult game.
Yeah.
Holy
man.
shit. He just went above and beyond, didn't he?
Yeah.
My dad would usually just sit around and try to figure out BASIC and then assembly language on the Commodore 64, and then, you know, me as his little snot-nosed kid would just be tugging at his shirt going, Dad, can I play? Oh, fuck it.
Shut up! In Danish, of course.
This is a good
Yeah, in Danish.
Yeah.
This is a good segue to another story, because you mentioned your dad sort of trying to figure out how to do, you know, basic programming on Commodore. In my case, it was an IBM PC clone that we got in 1989, and I distinctly remember the day that we got it, because my grandfather had bought it for my brother, and then one day I just came back home from school, and there it was. And I remember we had, I imagine it was also the same pretty much anywhere, but if you bought a properly licensed copy of MS-DOS 3.3, which I sort of doubt anyone did, but there you are, you would get the two humongous volumes that were, it was sort of, what do you call it, like spiral binders, I guess? Is that the term? Like binders for paper?
Yeah, no, that's...
Yeah, whatever. You got those two huge volumes, one of which was a manual for GW Basic, and the other was a manual for MS-DOS 3.3. And I remember my dad sort of digging through them and then putting the, you know, the DOS 3. The operating system was not on ROM on the IBM PC, and then just, you know, listing commands like you know, dir for listing files on the floppy drive, and that was really a visceral experience for me because it was also the first time I've ever sort of seen a computer being controlled in something that is not very, very rudimentary basic. All my experience up until that point had been with like the ZX Spectrum or Commodore 64 or even the Amstrad, all of which were you know, sort of immediately operated with BASIC, and that was like a completely different concept for me to have an operating system command prompt in front of me.
Oh shit! I used to mess around with BASIC so much. I mean, you mentioned GW Basic and of course BASIC on the Commodore 64, and that was around the time when I figured, hey, I can make games on my own, and just, you know, piling on the if-then statements and you know, doing my own little adventure game engine in QBasic until I ran into the memory limit, which was like 80 kilobytes or something. I've talked about that on the Square Waves FM podcast, and that was, I mean, that was a fun time because, you know, being in school, you have plenty of time when you don't want to do homework, so I was just sitting there and messing around with my stuff. Yeah, that, you know, messing around with the, you know, low-level programming was tons of fun. I can't do high-level programming. I'm a complete and total, you know, not a numbers nerd, not a programming. It's too much logical thinking for me. But just, you know, the bare basic, low-level programming like BASIC. Well, BASIC.
The reason I tell everyone that I became a
such a
programmer, the reason I tell everyone I became a programmer is because I'm bad at math.
Don't believe it for a second.
Oh, I am very bad at math. Like arithmetic and stuff, I'm horrible. I can't calculate a tip on a bill. I can't. I'm horrible.
There is absolutely zero correlation between being good at math and being good at programming.
Agreed.
It has to do with logical thinking more than it does with math. But just doing like a random number generator in AGS, I have to Google and copy paste that shit. If I want a character to say a random thing each time,
What do you think we, the professional software developers that get paid for it, do?
Stack Exchange, Stack Overflow.
Yeah, exactly.
Stack Overflow. Yeah.
You were talking about DOS. DOS 5.0 changed my life.
Oh, why
that's
is
when they
that?
introduced. Well, that's when they introduced stuff like the UMB and stuff, and that's when I really started being able to dig deep into using your hardware. Because before that, you could have all that, the upper memory, the high memory, more than 640K or whatever.
Extended and expanded. And...
Yeah, but it was just a pain to use it all. I mean, in
Hey,
DOS
ladies,
4.0,
Brian will dig deep into your upper memory.
I will.
Does anyone remember which
That was
version?
a labor joke.
Does anyone
Remember
remember which version of DOS came with like the multi-boot menu that you could program directly into your config sys and auto-exec?
I think I only started using it in 6. I probably was around before that.
Yeah. So an amusing anecdote is that I actually figured out a way to implement that before that version of DOS came out. And I was just really supremely proud of myself for having basically programmed something that did the exact same thing. And then like a few months, like 4 months later, that version of DOS came out, and it had not only did it have the exact same set of features, it had nearly the exact interface. The only difference was mine couldn't be directly done with like the config and auto-exec files. But then for years and years, I had this strange vision of like Bill Gates escaping, all dressed in black, escaping out the window, cackling to himself madly.
I have it! I have the answer!
Yeah, only with a thick German accent. You have to have a German accent for some reason.
And then the theme from Benny Hill plays.
I just confirmed that was DOS 6, and that's the one that had MemMaker, which really pissed me off because all that stuff I learned how to do in DOS 5.
Didn't matter.
MemMaker did it all
was
automatically.
awesome.
Yeah.
MemMaker was awesome. Can I get a Hail Mary for hating QEMM?
Oh, yeah, QE.
Yeah, that was awesome.
To hell with QEMM. That
wrong
messed
with
up so many programs of mine and games and such.
It had such, the occasional compatibility issue, and in my case at least, they were just dastardly rare. It was so worthwhile because it would free up like easily 20 to 60K more RAM than you could get with like MemMaker, and MemMaker wasn't even optimal. Like you could tweak usually like an extra 10 to 15K RAM just doing it manually.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
MemMaker would give you like 75%, of what you could do.
But still, the only thing you could play with QEMM was the fucking Bananas game from QBasic or something. It was terrible. And it crashed games. Not even just refusing to load or anything. It would just randomly crash games because you were running QEMM. I hated that thing.
Well, wasn't the difference that MemMaker just configured your AutoExec and config.sys, and QEM ran as a TSR?
TSR, yeah.
No,
It worked on Magic as far as my teenage brain was concerned.
MemMaker was coupled with Microsoft's memory manager, which was EMM386 and Hyman 6 .sys, which you can probably remember.
Yeah.
But QMM was its own fully blown memory manager, and I don't know why your experiences with it were so bad, Trolls. For me, it was rock solid for years. As soon as I found it, it was just an amazing piece of software. And actually, Overdeck Systems was a really impressive company for its time. Has anyone here used DeskView at all?
Nope.
Heard of it, never used it.
Sounds familiar. DeskView?
DeskView with a Q. It was sort of an kind of an multitasking operating system with a text-based kind of single app but switchable UI that would actually give you proper multitasking on top of MS-DOS. And it was actually like basically everything Windows 3.11 tried to be, with the exception of the graphical interface. So that's something that Windows did that DeskView did not, and that's why Windows, sort of eventually won. But DeskView was actually really, really, really fantastic if you ran BBSs or just about anything. If
Is
you're
that,
a
is that what we're looking at there?
no, that looks like
Was it Desktop X?
QEMU. I'm guessing that's some sort of.
That looks like the worst SimCity game of all time.
I'm more interested in what those eyes are doing down
No,
there.
it's a Unix of some sort. I don't know. Oh, DeskView X is it? Right, DeskView X was DeskView with an X windowing system, which was very just
Oh, I vaguely remember this and never got anywhere with it.
No, DeskView
This
without
guy, maybe?
was yeah, this is it. This is
There you go.
text-based. And it was really lightweight, and you can actually literally run multiple DOS programs on it with a fairly high degree of stability and compatibility. And that's something that you couldn't really do up until at least Windows 95.
I was like half expecting Joe's browser to have like a Pornhub tab open in his browser. But, yeah, maybe
I
that's
clean things up before the Hangouts, you know.
That's why God invented incognito Windows.
Exactly.
And that just went south, didn't it?
Dun, dun,
Well, you
dun.
just remind me of in DOS games. They had the boss key.
Boss key.
Oh,
exactly.
good. The boss key in Lisa Suit Larry was fucking hilarious. It was. It did not have anything to do with because the boss key just showed a spreadsheet of different flavored condoms or different types of condoms and such, and it would not look anything like anything you would be working on.
It's like it was like
and
the worst fake DOS prompt screen possible.
Yeah, and the best part was that you couldn't get out of it. It would literally lock up the game.
Oh man!
So if you hit the boss key, you were just screwed. I loved that.
So I have a question for everybody. One of you guys were talking about up all night playing games. Oh, I think it was.
I think it was.
Martin,
We were talking about
Tomer.
Civilization. Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, and I was trying to think of my first up all nights, and there was a game called Labyrinth of Time.
Labyrinth of Time.
And for some reason, it wasn't that popular. I mean, I know a few people played it, but it was kind of like Myst, where you had screens, just still views, and then you would walk forward or back. But it was, built on a grid view, so there was more of a map that you could chart. You really couldn't map out your movement in Myst very well. This was all grid-based movement, but for some reason I stayed up all night playing that game and woke. When my alarm went off to wake me up to get ready for school, I was like, oh crap, I've been playing all night. I stayed home sick that day. But like Zelda on the original NES and Resident Evil on the PlayStation, those are all the first games I can really think of. What about you guys? Anybody have any other up all night playing games, not realizing you were playing all night?
I mean, definitely World of Warcraft. That's a little more modern for sure.
When I was younger, it was 007. That was the first game I ever passed out to.
Oh, like
The
GoldenEye?
N64?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. The first game you ever passed out to?
Yeah.
You have more on this list.
Well, yeah. I recently Metal Gear Solid made me Metal Gear Solid 5. That was my recent one. But I used to stay up and play StarCraft, and I also would stay up and play. What was it? It was like. Civilization was one. I didn't stay up and pass out and play Rest of Civilization, but it was another game. It was kind of weird. It was a game that I got. It was a game that I got one of those shovelware discs that had like 500 games on there, and it was some weird strategy game that involved fighter jets. I can't remember what it was called. And then there was another one called Stars. I don't know if you remember Stars.
With an exclamation point? Stars!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stars. Yeah, I love that game. So yeah, I've had many. I get pretty addicted to certain games that I enjoy.
I remember sitting around playing Gabriel Knight 2 until like 4 in the morning, and then I got to the part where Von Cell is in the cave eating human bones, like decrepit human bones, and just going, oh, okay, my room is dark. I think it's time to go to bed now. Click, off you go.
Sometimes I wish my side effects of my binge gaming were as mild as passing out. I'm embarrassed by mine. When I was a kid, I would play, and so one of you guys already mentioned the whole forget to go to the bathroom, and then my mom would yell at me about streaks in my underwear. So I was a kid.
Well,
that hasn't happened in like 2 or 3 years, I swear.
Well, I've got a couple of stories about games that have really messed with my head and shaped me weirdly, but they were not from the DOS or pre-Windows XP gaming era.
I don't know if I want to know what shaped you. No, I'm kidding.
Actually, this is kind of sobering. Sorry.
I said we were gonna go deep.
Yeah. I've already talked about Gone Home on Brian's podcast, the Square Riffs podcast, and that was quite recent. And it was actually during my summer vacation this year, and I had 3 weeks off work, and I was it was the Steam summer sale, and just picked up Gone Home for cheap, and just decided, hey, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm just going to play through this real quick and see what it is. And literally, for the next 3 days, I was wandering around in stupor, just completely blown away by that game. And I haven't been the same person since. I mean, I couldn't jack off for 3 days. It was that powerful.
Strong words.
I thought you were going to say you played the game for 3 days, and that's like a 3-hour game, not a 3-day game.
I played it for like 2 hours, and then I replayed it just to see if I had missed anything, which I did, and then I woke up the next day and I spent 4 hours watching other people play the game just because I wanted to see everything that was in it. That game, and again, this is a very, very recent thing, but that game just really, really changed the way I look at storytelling in games. It's just the most powerful story I've ever seen in a computer game ever.
Oh, I fully agree.
It gets a lot of shit for not being a real game and all that kind of bullshit, which is not true in the least. It's one of the most powerful stories I've ever seen in a computer game.
Yeah.
Most people who don't think it's a real game are people who think a real game has to have a shooting mechanic or something like that.
Yeah, or some sort of because it does this one thing really, really brilliantly, which is that you if you go in cold and you don't know what the game's about, you go into it thinking it's like a haunted house story or that ghosts are going to pop out at any moment and such, and it's not like that at all.
Yeah, and even though I knew what the game was about, I still thought that from time to time, like something's gonna happen, because it is this creepy house, right?
You know, the first hour I kept expecting some sort of puzzle to come up because I thought it was going to be like a modern day Seventh Guest or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it didn't do that at all. And by the end of it, I was not to spoil shit and stuff, but by the time I got to the attic, I was like really like and I was sober when I played it. This is how powerful the game was. When I got to the attic, I was like, oh, please, God, don't let this be what I think it's going to be. Because I thought I was like wandering into a suicide or something. And it did not do that at all. And when the ending finally popped up, again, not trying to spoil anything, but I was just so elated. I was so, it really, I mean, there was a lump in my throat by the end of that game. Mm-hmm. And I've never felt like that with a game before or since.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's actually it would be an interesting topic for you to do maybe in season 3 of Backseat Designers. But is it an adventure game?
I would say it's a story game. It's one of those visual novels kind of thing. It's an adventure game in the sense that you're on an adventure and you kind of solve puzzles or you pick up keys to go through doors and such. But it's not like pick up shit, give shit to other characters and stuff like that.
In fact, is there even any? There almost aren't like inventory items at all. You basically pick up things and put them back.
Yeah, exactly. There's none of that shit. But it and for any lesser story than that, it would have been kind of what the hell am I doing? Why am I even bothering with this stuff? But the when I was playing it, at least, I didn't even feel like I was being led on the string, because when you look back on it, it's a very linear game. But it didn't feel like that. It felt like it's so masterfully designed that you don't feel like you feel like you're able to explore the house. But then when you go back and play it, you realize that clues and stuff are scattered in a way to make you feel like you're discovering this shit on your own. But you are being led on the string, but it doesn't feel like it. So my hat is off to the creators of Gone Home, because that is one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had.
And I know one of the guys.
Game
Yeah, one of the guys that did it, I can't remember his name right now, but for a while he actually had a really good podcast where he would interview other game developers, and they would have some very interesting, very deep conversations about game design and theory of game design and storytelling in games. So I can't remember the name of it right now, and it's ended, but he would run into other game developers at conferences and stuff and grab them and drag them into a closet and interview them. And they had some really, really good talks. So I know Tomer's got a couple of more stories. If Brian or Martin do, then...
Oh, just briefly.
Yep.
What I'm glad that Gone Home didn't do was to actually put puzzles in my way and not make me get me stuck and not being able to progress the story because I got stuck in something. That would have taken me out of it.
Yeah.
Because it has such an excellent flow. That's basically
yeah.
I've got one more story, but I want to hear from Tomer first.
Okay. Go for it, Tomer.
Right, so one of my very early kind of computer-related memories are a neighbor of ours ran a sort of a preschool, I guess, for like grade, it's not even a grade, it's like when you're 4 or something. I don't know what the expression is.
Yeah, preschool sounds about right.
Yeah, and they had a computer there, and contrary to most similar kind of private institutions that could actually afford any kind of computer, they had an Amiga, and specifically Amiga 1000. So it was like literally the original Commodore Amiga, and those things were exceedingly rare in Israel. So it was pretty much one of 2 Amigas I've ever seen before owning one, and it took me forever to find one for my collection. Almost 5 years, actually. But anyway, the experience is that I saw that thing, and to me, back then, I was like probably 5 or maybe 6. So all I had exposure to were just a few very different machines, like Apple II, Commodore, an Amstrad at some point, and a PC. And so computers were basically all lumped together into this one concept of a computer. I didn't really recognize the differences. And the first time that I ever saw that machine was when it ran. Has anyone here played Defender of the Crown?
Oh, yeah. On the Commodore 64 as well.
Oh, yeah, it had a version for pretty much any platform under the sun.
The music was fantastic.
So the very first version of that game dates back to 1986, and it's a Cinemaware game. So that's a company. Actually, that ties into something else we mentioned earlier. Rob Landeros was the executive producer on that, and he also produced and directed The Seventh Guest, and
yes.
Unfortunately later on The 11th Hour. So that's an interesting bit of trivia there.
Hashtag the house is a rapist.
I have no idea.
Joe was the only one who got that joke.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, wow. Okay, I only got the rate. Okay, never mind. So it ran Defender of the Crown, and Cinemaware was an interesting early kind of gaming company, and they had this what is nowadays would be considered more of a mid-90s full motion video kind of thing, but they had this vision of sort of translating the cinematic feel of movies to computer games, to interactive media. And so all their games that included quite a few classics, some of which are quite well known, were basically a basic kind of thematic experience where in Defender of the Crown, for instance, you play one of, I think, 4 Saxon lords that that vie for control of England and need to first drive out the Norman kind of lords that have invaded the land, and there's Robin Hood involved, and all that stuff.
Cinemaware.
Yeah, Cinemaware, that's the one. So it's
came for desserts.
It's sort of a very basic overland strategy game, except that basically everything that actually happens, like if you move an army and you attack another army, or you attack a castle, or pretty much anything that goes on in that game, are sort of like scenes from a movie. So they had a swordplay scene that has like shadows on the walls in the vein of like the.
That was so good looking.
Amazing for the time, and yeah, it referenced a lot of like Robin Hood movies and sort of like old English historical novels and all that stuff. It was actually a decent game, not a lot more than that, but what it had going for it was it had, first off, the most amazing pixel art you will ever see, especially considering the limitations of the medium, because it was 320 by 240 by, I think he actually used a limited color palette of typically up to 16 colors. So it was sort of analogous.
Center of the ground?
Yeah. And
welcome back, by the way.
What's that?
Oh, just welcome back, Craig.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, the artist was James D. Sachs, and he actually did some amazing early artwork around the Amiga space. And the other thing that struck me was the music, because it was this. Let me send you a link in a second, because I recorded the actual music from the Amiga version of the game, just so that I could play it at my leisure, and it's on my website with permission from the musician.
Hey, Tomer, I actually think they re-released that recently on mobile platforms.
They did, and it's shit. It's not the same game. It's a remake, and it's just not really very good. And,
okay.
I really wanted to root for them, but as with many other kind of reboots of companies or remakes of games, it was just basically not very good.
Yeah, the less said about Dungeon Keeper, the better.
We don't have to talk about that.
Good example thereof. So with respect to Defender of the Crown, it first of all, it was a very early showcase of what the Amiga could do, because the music and the graphics and the animations and everything was just so well ahead of the curve for 1986. It's not even funny. And it just blew me away. And it was also the experience that taught me the fundamental difference between hardware platforms, because up until that point, I just had no idea that there's an actual difference between a PC or a Spectrum or an Apple II or whatever. They were just all sort of different interfaces to the same kind of fundamental concept that I had in mind. So yeah, and also I never owned an Amiga back in its heyday, but I was so thoroughly impressed with that machine that I spent years from like age 11 to 16 trying to track one, sort of track one to buy for my collection, and then spend 2 months figuring out how to get software downloaded from the internet, like disk images, onto it. But it was totally worth it. It's just an amazing machine.
Jesus, I mean, Cinema War Games really tried to live up to their name with ancient hardware, ancient in air quotes, and Defender of the Crown really just had amazing graphics, even on the Commodore 64. It was just like really just how the hell did they squeeze this onto? I think Defender of the Crown on the 64 was like a single disc, or maybe it was a couple of discs, but it was really, really like, how the hell did they do that?
Yeah, even the PC version was actually pretty compelling for the time, both graphics-wise, well, not music-wise, but graphics-wise. And it could also take advantage of the Tandy back in the day, which was pretty unusual.
See, I remember playing it on the Atari ST, and it was back then the ST could do up to 4,096 colors, so the color palette on it was pretty sweet.
4,000?
4,009. Yeah, in the Atari ST, and it's I don't want to call it low res. The best mode, 320 by I think 200, could do up to 4,096 colors. But it wasn't beaten by the Amiga. I think the Amiga could do more.
The Amiga could do out of the box about the same with what is called the Ham 8 mode, but it's not a very practical sort of thing. So you need to use, like as with anything, the demo scene came up with massive tweaks for pretty much any hardware platform, the Amiga inclusive. So you could actually do a lot with both machines, and they were quite comparable. But I think the Amiga had the better sound, definitely the better sound hardware for the time, but also I feel the better operating system.
And I think the Atari actually had the better graphics. So
it might have had.
So between the two, it was very comparable because porting stuff over seemed to happen fairly quickly.
Well, they had the same CPU, the old classic.
The Motorola's.
And were, they were similar enough, but the graphics hardware and sound hardware were fundamentally different between those machines. Like the SD had the old AY synthesis chip that was actually really, really popular in like early 80s computers. And it had like 3-channel, either square or saw wave generators plus a noise channel. It was basically a piece of crap. It was probably analogous to what the original NES had in terms of a sound chip. You could do a lot with it, but it was kind of a piece of crap.
Can I just throw out a quick cheers for everyone who's drinking?
Sure.
I had a question about those old computers you guys were talking about. I never had any of them. I played on them before, but didn't they function more like a console where you just put a game in and turn it, launch the game? You didn't have to, configure anything.
The Amiga and the Atari had their own disk operating systems.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're talking about booters.
And the Amiga was the first to do true multitasking, if I remember correctly.
I don't know that it was well, it certainly was not the first computer, but I think it might have been
first home computer.
The second home computer, because the Mac came out a year earlier, and it was, a piece of crap in many ways, but still, it had a proper multitasking operating system.
Yeah, but you couldn't play games.
Yeah, exactly. Just a manhole.
I could talk about old hardware all day, so let's move on to something else.
Hey, Martin, I've got a question for you. When did you first get PC gaming?
What just happened?
It echoed a lot.
That wasn't me.
The NSA just chimed in. Jesus, stop doing that.
Okay. Right?
Someone put on headphones. Anyone.
Ooh, something crazy happened.
I muted. It wasn't me.
Okay.
I think it was Tomer.
Oh yeah, it looks like it was Tomer.
No, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was asking what the first. When did you first get a PC? Do you know around what year you got into PC gaming?
Yeah, so it's kind of all over the place. I could say the first time I had a computer in the home that I was allowed to put games on was around '95. And so I remember they just picked up a pre-built Windows 95 machine, and one of the very first things that I got for it was my dad who gave me his X-Wing disc. So I was playing X-Wing on that computer for a long time, and my dad would burn me CDs of his games, but the CD drive I had couldn't read any burnt CDs, so I had all this collection of burnt CDs that I couldn't use. So when I went to go visit my dad, I would play all his games. But the first computer that I owned that was mine, that was truly mine, I got it in 2003, and it was a laptop. And I played all sorts of crazy games on that. I can't remember. I think Command & Conquer Generals was the first one I really played on there. That was mine, and MechWarrior 4. But my first true blue, built from the ground up PC I got as a birthday present in 2004.
Cool.
And then and that was my Call of Duty 2 incident.
Oh, there you go. Well, I mean, realistically, the first computer I had that was mine, I got it when I was doing undergrad. I got a Pentium 3 laptop. I mean, the rest of that time, all the other computers I ever played on were my dad's computer or the family computer. And my father always told me, I'd always say, oh, I want a computer that's my own, or I want a faster computer. or I want this, or I want that. And he always said my whole life that, oh, if you go to school and you get into computers, then we'll get you a computer. And that was kind of his way to make me go away. Until I was actually in university, and I said, hey, you've been telling me my whole life that if I went to school and I learned how to program and blah, 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 and did something useful, quote unquote, with computers, you would buy me one. He's like, fine.
This is like the antithesis of my dad's story.
Yeah,
this
well,
is like, my dad would just throw computers at me and just expect me to do something with them, and your dad was like, yeah, I'll get you a computer if you can prove yourself worthy.
But yeah, well, I guess for me it was always like we always had computers. I always had the freedom to do what I wanted with them, but it was always, and I think much like you, it was like, this is the one you have, this is the one you can use. But the thing that was different for me was with my dad is like, if he needed it for business purposes, then go away. But I had access to it 99% of the time.
If the computer rooms are rocking, don't come a knocking.
Mm-hmm.
Not to sully your dad or anything.
Well, I guess no, that was probably for me when I would be secretly playing Leisure Suit Larry.
You had to secretly play it because I played it with my dad, and that was one of the weirder experiences of my life. He's just sitting there going, "Fuck the prostitute! Fuck the prostitute!"
That's great.
That's great.
My mom was way Christian. She'd seen Doom or Leisure Suit Larry on my PC. She would have killed me. So yeah, I had to play those real late at night.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been one of those 2 or 3 a.m. kind of things where you huddled over the computer trying to make it not sound not make the sound carry and stuff.
Oh yeah, that I remember. Like I'd want to be secretly, because we would turn. Now my computer's on 24/7, my desktop for sure. But back in the day, we would turn it off. And so if I wanted to like sneak out of my bedroom and play something, you'd have to go and then flick the switch, click, because it's a big hardware switch, and then it would go and start beeping, and I'm like, oh god, quiet, stop.
Yeah. I did a similar thing with when I was playing Phantasmagoria 2, and I had moved out. I was living with my girlfriend, now my wife, and I would play Phantasmagoria 2 while she was at university and stuff. We went to the same university. We had this little dorm college room stuff, and I was I remember just leaving the game on while I was doing ironing or dishes or something, and she came home at one point, and it was playing this movie of the later stages of the game where you're at the S&M club. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's one of those flashbacks where Therese, the S&M girl, is kind of doing stuff to you, and she just went and go, "What the hell are you doing when I'm not at home?" I don't, honey. It's just a game.
It's a game.
I'm not a weirdo.
So did you like it?
Phantasmagoria 2? Now, see, here's the thing about Phantasmagoria 2.
No.
The designer of Phantasmagoria 2, Lorelei Shannon, is a fantastically funny person. I'm good friends with her on Facebook and such, but I will unequivocally state that her game is total and utter shit.
I like the first one.
You did.
I hate the first one, and I actually really enjoy the puzzle Fletch. I mean, I don't have any doubts that a lot of the criticism that you would probably level at that game is well-founded. But you can tell your friend from me that she did a great job, and it's a really enjoyable game.
Just for trolls.
Uh-oh.
Oh, God.
Wow.
I still have my box.
Mine is in storage at my parents'.
What does it say? It's 7 CDs inside.
Oh, God.
Oh, that's the first one, then, because the second one was, I think, 5.
Yes. Yeah, well, the second one's.
I do have the original box of Phantasmagoria, and I used it to, I dug it out of my basement, and I, put it in the toilet and flipped the bird at it, and took a picture of it for Twitter, and I just reached under the bed to see if I still had the, the little bag with all my old game boxes in it. Can't find it right now, but I do have the boxed copy of it as well. Don't ask me why.
I'm starting to think you could be the DOS version of the angry video game nerd.
I think he already
Not
is.
I actually always envision Trolls and Fred on their podcast as being those two crotchety old guys from the Muppet Show.
Yeah. They don't go anywhere near where he goes.
I will take that as a huge compliment, the whole crotchety Muppet thing, because the angry video game nerd is one of my huge inspirations. Actually, he's a tremendously funny guy, and not really as angry in real life.
I would imagine.
I do have one more story of something that deeply affected me.
Sure.
Not as a kid, but one of those games that really stayed with me for a while. And this is going to sound really strange. This was actually a story I was saving for Brian's podcast, my second appearance on emotionally charged games. But I'm going to spill the beans right here, right now.
Sorry, Brian.
Sorry, Brian. Project Zero on the PlayStation,
Really?
also known as Fatal Frame in the United States. On its surface, it's just a survival horror game with a bunch of ghosts, and you're running around taking pictures of it, and it's very Japanese and such. But if you sit down and actually read all of the journal entries that you find around the haunted Japanese mansion and stuff, it's really, really heartbreaking, and I mean genuinely heartbreaking. Not to spoil too much, but I'm going to anyway because there's no way I can accurately describe just how heartbreaking it is. You've got this family, and for some reason they've got the door to hell in their basement. Don't ask me why. And to keep the door locked, they have to perform this weird ritual where they select a girl in this really, really weird kids game. They select a girl to be sacrificed to the Hellgate, and they keep her in a room until she reaches maturity, like 17 or 18 years, and she has to stay away from all human contact, so she remains mentally and physically pure. This is very Japanese, by the way. But in this story, she in flashbacks, the girl's already dead, but she haunts the mansion, and so does a bunch of other ghosts. And she snuck out and started seeing this guy who kept coming into the mansion, and they had this sort of illicit romance kind of thing. And for the whole business to work with securing the Hellgate, she has to remain emotionally pure. That means no emotional attachment to anyone in the world at all. The family and especially no love interests at all. So she meets this guy, and the monks that are kind of guarding her drops him into a well, and she becomes really, really sad. And the whole ritual is comprised of them taking her on her 18th birthday or something, taking her into the cellar, putting her on a sacrificial table, tying ropes around her arms and legs, and then slowly pulling her apart, then taking the blood-soaked ropes and tying them around the Hellgate. And the entire thing is just so, you gradually learn this throughout the game, and by the time you get to the actual Hellgate itself and encounter this, ghost of this woman who's just in incredible, excruciating pain, shrieking at you, not only because she's been torn limb from limb, but also because she's, brokenhearted and all this stuff. It's just, Jesus God, what am I doing? That stuck with me for the longest fucking time.
Bing.
What is the name of this game?
Fatal
Project
Frame.
Zero.
Project
Or Fatal Frame.
Flash.
in the US.
Wait, what year was this?
2002.
2002. And I played this game with a good friend of mine who, left the country when he was drafted for the military, so it just comes on, these infrequent visits. And, we turned off all the lights, lit candles, smoked some weed back, it was my university days. And we just said, hey, we're going to sit down and play this horror game. It's going to be fantastic. Light a couple of candles, turn off all the lights. The opening scene of that game is just phenomenal. I mean, you go up these stairs. You're this little girl with a fucking camera, and you walk up the stairs, and then you turn around and you just hear it creaking on the stairs. There's no one there, and you turn around, and all of a sudden it just jumps out in your face. And by that when that happened, we just went, right, lights are coming on.
Yeah.
Screw this. It's both phenomenally creepy, but if you take on the surface, again, it's just a creepy survival horror game. You're just running around the haunted mansion defeating ghosts with your camera. Again, don't ask. But if you take the time to read the journals and such, that is one haunting story, no pun intended.
I've heard the gameplay referred to as Resident Evil meets Pokemon Snap.
Wow, that's quite the explanation.
No, I played Fatal Frame.
That's
an accurate representation.
What?
That's an accurate representation.
Cool.
I think my stream just went bananas on me. Everyone just, went back to 16-bit color.
Hey, it's a
320
retro
by
podcast.
200.
Yeah.
You can actually, if anybody wants to play it, it's on the PS3 store now, on the PSN.
Cool.
If you have
And
it.
I would highly recommend it, but I did just kick back and watch my friend play because again it's a survival horror game and I'm terrible at those things. So whenever we encountered ghosts, there's combat in it, and combat is essentially taking pictures of ghosts that kind of dissipates them or something, and it's that part of the game is awful. The actual gameplay part of the game is awful, but the story is just fantastic.
Well, then maybe it's worth a Let's Play viewing.
Let somebody else deal with the combat.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, couldn't jack off for a week after playing that thing.
Now that we know all your disturbing stories.
So following up on Troll's story, I think also sort of a shaping experience, but pretty much the only time I've ever I don't scare easily with movies as well as with games, but pretty much the first time I was ever properly frightened, out of my wits in a computer game, was actually in System Shock 2. So I imagine that most people. What's that?
I still haven't played it.
Wow.
I know. I should probably be putting quarters in a jar like Trolls because I've never played that one.
Fix that now.
Yeah.
I own it on Steam.
It honestly hasn't aged that well graphically, but gameplay-wise, it's still incredibly good in my opinion.
There's actually a couple mods that improved the graphics quite a bit. It is a very, very old game. It's from 1990, 8 or 9? I'm not sure which. So it makes it a very old game in 3D game terminology, at least. And because Craig at least hadn't played it, I won't spoil it for anyone. But just a hint for those of you who have played the game, that sort of Temple of Shodan scene when you get to a certain stage in the game, and it's basically the first plot twist in the game. That was the only scene I was ever genuinely frightened in a computer game, because it takes something that you sort of know all along, but the game only sort of hints at or alludes to in very broad terms, and the antagonist in that game is one that's sort of in the background up until that point in the story, and they managed to make the scene where you sort of meet the antagonist kind of in person for the first time just incredibly compelling. It's just really, really, really. It takes you by surprise, even if you saw it coming. There's probably 8 or 10 hours of gameplay up until you get to that point, and you see it coming all the way through, and it still takes you by surprise. So that was just fantastic. Really a good experience.
Sorry.
What's the most emotional reaction you've ever had to a computer game? Because I've talked about the Gabriel Knight 2 thing where he munches on zombie bones or whatever and just have to turn off the computer. Talked about Gone Home. Talked about Project Zero just a second ago. What's the most emotional reaction you've ever had to computer games? Anyone?
That's a tough one.
Intro.
The 7th guest intro.
Yes.
Huh.
Whoa, did not see that coming.
No, it has several things going for it, and I mentioned it briefly in in an episode of Score Waves FM that I did a few weeks back. And what happens is both the technology was so well ahead of its time, so the very fact that you could actually see like full motion video running a full screen and Super VGA on a 386 off of a CD-ROM drive was just mind-boggling in of itself. But the intro for the game has one of the most kind of cinematic feels to it that I've ever experienced in a computer game, because you get the right off the bat you get this Trilobite company logo, sort of a game by Trilobite, blah blah blah, and then you have the violins in the background, and it flows smoothly into the Virgin Multimedia logo, and then actually to the intro of the game, and the whole thing is just kind of. I think it might have been the first time. I don't know that it actually was the first time, but it certainly feels like it was the first time for a computer game to ever kind of have a flowing one-shot cinematic kind of introduction sequence to it.
Oh yeah, when the Thundercats hits and the Seventh Guest logo pops up like perfectly in sync, you just go, oh shit.
Oh yeah, and with the orchestral hit in the background, that's just
audio.
Oh.
Sorry, what?
I said I think that was one of the first games that used digital audio for its introduction and the whole,
You're talking about Seventh Guest?
Yeah.
That whole thing was Red Book audio, the entire intro, by the way, which is why it's so impressive that they timed it just perfect for the Thunderclap to roll in and then the Seventh Guest logo pops up. I was so impressed.
I knew Seventh Guest was the first one to use FMV, but I didn't know it had other technological.
Wasn't the first that used FMV as such?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Axel Software were doing that as 1989. Holy shit, that is distracting.
Wasn't it like the first to use FMV on CD or something like that?
Yeah, CD, yeah.
No, not on CD.
No?
Oh, full motion, yes, but not the first with video.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first one with full screen video.
Okay.
I shall have to excuse myself for just a brief second. I know we're kind of winding down, but I will be back in just a tick.
Well, to answer Troll's question, one of the games that kind of shocked me with it had, I don't know, call it an emotional impact, but it also shaped me was Ultima 3. I don't know if this goes way back.
Mm-hmm.
I remember spending an entire summer, 5 days, 7 days a week, playing that game over and over and over, and getting to the very end and finding out that what you're actually fighting was a computer and not a monster.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Spoilers.
Yeah, I know it was a total spoiler, but how many of you are going to go back and play Ultima 3 at this point?
I mean, for me, I guess a game. Well, there's a couple of games that kind of like floored me, but I mean, from a technological perspective, and I've mentioned this before, was one of the first times I played Wing Commander 1, just because I was trying to think back to if that was one of the first VGA games I played, but definitely one of the first games that had any sort of like rotoscope type animation, and so it was just like I was playing it on like a 286, and I was basically looking at it and experiencing the mission briefing and then the scramble to your ship and stuff.
Gets me pumped every time I watch it.
Yeah, like even to this day, like it doesn't look bad, like, and it's just like I didn't think that a computer could look that way. Like I think I've said that multiple times on the show, but that's something that just floored me. I was like at my friend's house, and he had this fancy new 386 with a CD-ROM with a caddy, and he showed me that, and then I said, no, you have a 386. There's no way my computer could do this, and he lent me the game, blah blah blah, and I installed it at home, and I said, wow, it works the same. My computer could do this. That's crazy.
I love those moments when you discover something your computer can do you didn't know it could do. What was that, Martin? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna talk about what Trolls had brought up. It's hard for me to pinpoint when I got emotional, but I can tell you that I've been shocked before on a video game. I did say the first time ever that I was just shocked was when Seth got shot by Kane in Command & Conquer.
Because man, I blew it for us.
More spoilers.
Oh, well, like it's like not even a third through the game. But I mean, my dad
Yeah, it's like
worked at the
super
Pentagon.
early, right? Yeah.
Yeah, my dad worked at the Pentagon while I played this game for the first time, and so this is my first time ever playing Command and Conquer. My only experience was Red Alert, so going backwards to playing Command and Conquer was a treat for me because I wanted to see what this game was like because it was way more technological than Red Alert 2 was. But I got used to this guy named Seth, and I didn't know who Kane was. Not a single person has ever told me about Kane at this point. And he talks about him a lot, and he's like, okay, we're going to attack the Pentagon. I'm like, oh, cool, my dad works there.
I'm gonna blow it up.
I'm going to blow it up. And then just in the middle of the briefing, nonchalantly, wasn't no build up, no nothing, just a gun comes out of nowhere and shoots him in the head. And what am I, like 9 years old? And this just blows my mind. And there's this bald-headed guy, creepy as hell, and that's it shocked the hell out of me, and it resonated to this day. But why I love Command and Conquer so much, as far as like maybe getting emotional in like in probably the more traditional sense of the word, I can't really find a game on the PC that made me get that way. But but I can tell you that Super Paper Mario for the Wii gave me a few tears.
Really?
Yeah.
That is actually a very good game, but I'm surprised it would, go to the point where you would actually be moved to tears, because I've played almost the entire way through it, and it's good.
It's good. Well, for some reason, Count Bleck's story, the main villain, really got to me on like a personal level. Because it's just the whole lost love type thing, and where his whole thing is that he lost the person that he loves, and now he's out to destroy the world because he can't find love anymore. And then at the end, everything goes for Soko, and it was a little. That's
actually I'm with you on that. I mean, I'm not judging or anything. But I'm with you on that, because the whole lovelorn kind of thing is, when I look back on stuff that has resonated with me emotionally, be it books or movies or computer games, it's always the lovelorn. I mean, I will shamefully admit that, I got a lump in my throat the first time I watched Titanic before it got to this huge fucking thing. So yeah, the whole love lost kind of thing. What the hell is going on with that? Yeah, that's one of the things that resonate with me as well.
Oh, very cool.
In silence, once again. I'm a master of this.
What to do next? We're just all trying to figure out someone else is going to interject.
Well, that's the thing about emotional stories. There's not a whole lot of cheering or laughing.
Cheering or like making
What's the weirdest thing? I mean, that's actually a good thing. What's the weirdest thing you've ever found yourself emotionally attached to?
Portal 2.
What, Portal 2?
When no spoilers, but when you find out that Gladys was basically the AI version of can't remember the girl's name now, and then Gladys like, oh, I found her. Now I've deleted her. And to me, that was like, what? Like, you find out that she's like actually has human in her, and then she deletes her human.
I read about that.
I've played in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. What was that?
That's the best game I've played in the last 10 years.
Carolyn was her name.
Carolyn, yeah. Now that I've deleted Carolyn.
That would hit home so hard for me. That's not even embarrassing or weird. That's just full on feels right here.
Mm-hmm. Tomer, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think the last game to have that I can recall that had an emotional impact on me might have been Beyond Good and Evil, because it's such in a way, it's almost Disney-esque in how kind of innocent the basic premise of the story is, and where it sort of takes the main character. It's really kind of basically a good-natured kind of adventure game at heart. So yeah, it was pretty compelling. Oh, and also one other thing that comes to mind. What's it called? The Walking Dead, I think, the Telltale games. Telltale are really quite adept at the sort of the I guess I would say it sounds derogatory, but it isn't meant to be that way. Sort of the cheap emotional impact, because they sort of went all in, but in a cheesy horror movie kind of way. So it was really intentional, and as such, it worked really, really well. I feel in that game.
Yeah, I mean, we can argue left, right, and center about whether or not Telltale games are adventure games, but I mean, yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Trolls could have been.
I would argue that the earlier stuff, the Sam and Max ones and the Monkey Island ones, are more adventure than the newest ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say the newer ones are more like...
throw this.
Yeah, go ahead, Trolls. Go for it.
I'm just going to throw this one out here, not to derail the whole Telltale is not making adventure games anymore. But Aerith getting killed in Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
Thoughts?
Never played it.
Never played it? That is one of the most dear fucking god what just happened moments of any computer game.
I've never played Final Fantasy more than the first few hours, but I know all about it just because of osmosis. But I have no context of what you had to go through to the game up to that point. And the cinematic where Aerith is, where he's laying Aerith to rest.
And the flowers and everything.
Right, yeah, like you just watch it and it's so like you can't help but have some sort of feeling about it.
And the music.
The music.
The
music.
Yeah.
And basically that is one of the best game soundtracks I've ever heard. When I hear the Aerith theme, just in any context, I just immediately get this lump in my throat. I just go, what the hell?
Yeah, it's funny because I mean I've said it again a lot on the show. I'm not an RPG guy, but I was able, or at least I went through a phase where I played 7, 8, 9, 10, and I think I got part of the way through 10-2, and then I kind of petered out on Final Fantasy. But
10-2's the one.
And then you went, what the hell am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
See, and I'm old school. I went through the entire Gold Box series of SSI Dungeons and Dragons games.
Those are intense.
I'm scared to talk about those.
Speaking of many nights playing up until 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning. Just one more level. Just one more level.
Oh, I know that feeling way too well.
Yeah.
Well, we've been going for 2 hours.
Yeah, I think we're getting around. Unless does anyone else have any other stories they want to
I just got a small one.
Yeah, go for it, and then we'll wrap up.
All right. Well, when I was when I was just starting to learn how to read, I was 4 or 5 years old.
4 or 5 years ago.
No, 5 years. Oh, 4 or 5 years old. I had trouble reading what was going on in my video games, and I had to have my stepdad or my mom or even my dad basically run me through what they were saying, especially in Star Fox, which is still one of my favorite games. And so, to this day, my dad credits video games for helping me learn how to read, because I didn't want to learn how to read so I can read books or I could find out what stuff was. I wanted to read so I could figure out what they were saying in my video game, so I could learn to play by myself.
This is the exact story of mine, except reading was one part, but learning English was the other part. I mean, I remember following a walkthrough through Space Quest 2 because I didn't know what to put into the parser and such. And I really, really credit video games and computer games for teaching me English. I mean, words that I would never come across in school or whatever. Computer games really taught me not just English, because you can like go to a class and learn English, like where's the nearest bathroom and what does this color on the sidewalk mean and such. Am I going to get hit by a car and such? But just getting into the vernacular, getting into dictum and such. I really credit computer games with that.
So what word comes to mind when you said the words you never even learned in school? What's one word? English word that you've learned that really sticks out in your head that you have in video game?
Ooh, me, pick me. I have one.
I have to think about that. You go ahead.
So, I'm probably 8-ish, and I'm playing Leisure St. Larry 1. And, I I think it might have been on the UMB cast actually that I learned that this is actually a racist slur. But when you go to the grocery store thing or 7-Eleven, whatever, and you need to buy condoms, and then you buy lubbers, and I for years and years I thought that was an actual word. Like I had no idea that that's intended to be a racial slur. So I thought that was actually how you call condoms. That's one of the words for them.
You guys are talking about learning to read for games. Now my kids, they can read fine, but they're just too lazy now. They just click and click and click to go past all the dialogue. I don't know if it's the ADD generation or what.
Who reads the quest text? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember reading all sorts of, you talk about emotional things. It sounds silly, but Resident Evil, you could find a caretaker's diary where they're talking about just the weird things that are going on around the complex, and as you get to the later pages, his words start getting hard to read, and the last page is just "for itchy tasty." It's like the last things he wrote as he's turning into a zombie.
Oh, geez. I've got one there.
That's a ripoff, though, and that's been done before, including in System Shock 1 and 2, by the way.
Yeah, but a lot of people miss that stuff because a lot of people don't want to read it. They just, that's optional, just move on with the game.
You guys ever played BioForge?
I have not.
It's one of the holes in my education. I know that I should, but I also know that it's considered to be, for modern players, just basically unplayable.
It kind of is. BioForge it's made by Origin Systems, and it's not a good game. It's basically Alone in the Dark, except you're a cyborg. But the first character you run into, the first NPC you run into, is this blue-skinned guy who's undergone so many genetic experimentations that he's just gone batshit insane. You pick up the guy's arm and beat him to death with it, but then you pick up his diary, and this is one of the best pieces of journal storytelling that I've ever seen. Jesus! Hi guys.
I had to introduce two young UMB cast listeners who when we would hike during the summer, had to listen to this show. So Joe, you have a young audience.
All right.
I should not swear at this point.
They can't hear you.
The first thing he does when the children show up, he starts swearing.
I'm about to say something really disturbing.
That's why we keep it around.
So in BioForge, you pick up this guy's diary after you've beaten him to death with his own arm, and it starts out really gently, like okay, so I'm in this laboratory. They're conducting all these experiments on and the journal entries just get more and more weird. Like, I'm not actually in jail. Actually, the guards are the ones in jail, and I'm the one trying to keep them out and such. And by the end of it, he's just gone completely insane. And the last entry is just "hunt the worm." And I've never been so freaked out by one sentence in my life.
Oh, that's because you haven't played Fallout, I guess. Because you get much the same effect, even the same sort of literary mechanic when you get to the Hole, which is sort of the origins of the Brotherhood of Steel, the bunker. You get to read a diary entry of someone who's been infected with the FEV2, sort of the mutagen that turns people into super mutants in that game. And it's exactly as you describe, except I think probably a few years earlier, or maybe even around the same time. But it wasn't that original an idea to begin with, even way back when.
Yeah, and stuff like that has always gotten to me, like things where people are devolving or being taken over or something like that. That stuff like that has always bothered me. Like I always found it very disturbing.
Like being driven insane. I mean, the guy's journal entries just kind of devolve into he stops using capital letters and he stops using correct punctuation, and at one point he just starts putting in random garbage characters in his journal entries, and the last one is just a lot of garbage characters and then "hunt the worm." I was so freaked out when I read that.
Unfortunately, part of the reason why it's disturbing to me is it reminds me of my grandmother slowly had Alzheimer's take over, and you just kind of see that happen. Where by the end, all she knows is that she just wants to go home. She can't think of anything else, and just every time you see her, I want to go home, I want to go home, and her, the home she sold, 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
That must have been the most depressing Christmas cards ever.
Yeah. Well, after 10 years of that, it was like it just became a joke.
Well, we did get deep, didn't we, Lance?
There we go. And on that note, shall we wrap up? Well, okay. So, anyways, that was it went to all levels. It went deep. It went emotional. It went happy. It went silly. It went sweary. So, thanks, guys. Lots of fun. We'll have to do one of these. This one is later than I wanted it to be, just because the summer's been crazy with fun stuff and not fun stuff and work stuff and whatever. But I'm glad everyone showed up and we had a good chat. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And thank you for having us, Tomer. Can I just briefly say fuck?
Fucking fuckers. Yeah.
Drain your drinks, everybody. We're calling it. So.
Last call. Closing time.
Boom.
I've emptied all my beers. I'm good.
Sweet. So
I'm just I'm so glad to have talked with all you guys. I'm just gonna have a quick post-orgasmic cigarettes and thank you guys so much for bearing with me.
Yeah, no, it's always a blast. If all goes well, next week we should be getting my thoughts on the new King's Quest. So if anyone has any thoughts on that, Trolls, I'm sure if you have or haven't played it, you'll have some thoughts on whether or not it's an adventure game, because so far it's quite telltale-y, shall we say?
It's a modern adventure game.
Yeah.
I have not played it. I have no thoughts on it. I'm sorry, this is not Tesla Effect over again. I have no intention of playing it. Is Cedric even in there? I don't know.
I'm intentionally waiting for the podcast.
All right. Well.
So far, no, Cedric. I did talk to the developer of the game, and I really wanted him to put Cyber Cedric in there. But
of course
so far, it's like, no, he's not in there yet.
Maybe that'll be in episode 2.
Based on my experience with King's Quest, with the series, I think I'd rather sort of poke my own eye out with a rusty fork than even bother.
See, Joe, you tried to close it up King's Quest, it's all over.
Yep. All right, so thanks again, everybody, and everyone watching, listening, whatever you're doing, thanks for hanging out with us for the amount of time we've been doing this, and we'll see you next week.
No more for today.
No more for today.
Keep up the good work.
Y'all.